Kayla, welcome everybody to our October 26th council meeting. Council has just returned from in camera. We had an in camera session prior, so we're picking up our agenda at this point at item number 2, which is our approval of the agenda. Before we continue, I just want to acknowledge welcome back to Councillor Leishman. It's nice to see you. Good to see you there. All right, so council, we have all of our councillors here. We have a member of our staff that are joining us, and so we can commence. Item number 2 is the approval of the agenda. Recommendation be it resolved that council of the township that we hereby approve the agenda dated October 26, 2020 as presented. I'm asking for an amendment for this agenda. I would ask that the 3 items that are on our agenda related to ATVs, that they will all be held immediately following our public meeting. We have a public meeting scheduled for 6:30. At 6:30, of course, the procedure here would be that I would relinquish the chair to the deputy mayor. The deputy mayor conducts the public meeting portion of the meeting. When the deputy mayor then returns the chair back to me, I would ask that council, we will deal with the 3 items. PW 021-2020, the report from staff, board report, item number 11.2, which is Councillor Patterson's report, and bylaw number 20-71 would be all dealt with in that order following our public meeting. Any questions? Anybody else, and any other recommendations or amendments to the agenda? Right, seeing none, I'll need a mover and seconder as amended. Councillor Broderick and Councillor Denis. Very good. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Yeah. And also, before we get started, I just want to mention too, I've picked up new glasses, so I'm having a little bit of adjustment situation getting used to it. So I'm having to hold paperwork away from me a little bit further than I normally do. So bear with me. Thank you, council. All right. Under disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof, I'm looking, is there anybody have a disclosure for this council meeting? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I have a small disclosure. We have a bylaw number 20-69. I'll be disclosing that I have a family interest, and so I filled out the appropriate paperwork, and so I will not be participating in that vote. And Deputy Mayor, I'll probably ask you to take over chairing for that small portion of the meeting. That's bylaw number 69, 20-69. All right. Thank you, council. Now, if there's nothing further on disclosures, very good. We have public participation period. Council, there are 29 items, and I have reviewed what I could with this and have some comments to make. So I'm just calling it up here on my laptop. All right, again, public participation. Persons have an opportunity to send in their comments prior to noon hour on Monday of the council meeting. And so we did receive 29 messages. So thank the members of the public for that. Item 4.1, Donna Bayless, I want to thank you very much for your comments. Item 4.2, Nancy White, thank you also for your comments. 4.3, Lisa Rutland, and 4.4, Pat Nealons, and 4.5, Mr. and Mrs. Usher Jones, also thank you all for your comments. 4.6, John and Darla Anderson, thank you very much for your comments. Frith Bale, thank you. 4.7, 4.8, Mr. Reynolds, thank you. 4.9, Cheryl McLaren, also thank you for your comments. 4.10 is quite a long mention, actually, from Kara. I just want to put it out there that your suggestions are heard by council, and it's up to members to bring forward amendments that will be discussed. Also, for Kara, they submitted a second letter at 4.29. And your survey questions with 87 comments, thank you very much for sending that in once again, as we did receive that information earlier. Okay, 4.11 is Mr. and Mrs. Reed. Thank you very much for those comments. 4.12, Ryan Landro, thank you for those comments. 4.13, Robin Vale, thank you for your questions and for your comments. 4.14, Jerry Sampson, thank you for those comments. Mr. Prue, welcome to Clearview Township, and thank you for your comments. Number 4.16, Eric Miller, thank you for your comments. 4.17, Jamie Wilson, a lengthy list of Ward 2 residents. It might be over 90 people, I think. Thank you for your message and your opinions. Item 4.18, Mr. McElwain. Mr. McElwain, council has received your messages. You've commented several times in regards to the MPO changes that are stated at the, nothing has changed in regards to our last council meeting. Council can make a decision on the proposed use of our municipal roads, as our road authority is determined by the Municipal Act. Also 4.23, Simcoe County has an agreement to operate the trails with the OFATV Club and with the Ontario Federation of Trail Riders. And the trails are patrolled by the OPP and by the Simcoe County bylaw enforcement officers as well through the Forestry Department. Sherry Sampson, Fort 19, thank you for your comments. Mr. Rarcy, thank you for your comments. Number 4.21, Mr. Budwitzki. So, Mr. Witzki, your question is of a technical nature, and for that, I'm going to ask the Public Works Department and or the CAO to respond to you by email to help you answer some of these technical questions. I'm not going to answer them at this time, but I think that we will find perhaps our Deputy Director of Public Works and or the CAO would be able to provide you with an email with some answers regarding the sidewalk question that you had there. 4.22, Barb Halsell. Thank you for your comments. Once again, Barb has commented several times. Mr. Daw, also thank you for your comments. Not sure where that one is. Yes, yeah, again, Mr. Daw, 4.24, correct. Number 25 is Ms. Margis. Thank you for your comments. Council will consider the report a little later on in the meeting. And for 4.26, Mr. Pettigen, thank you for your comments once again, sir. And 4.28, Mr. Reynolds, thank you also for your comments. Council, we have received in the, I guess the last 5 meetings, we've received literally dozens and dozens and dozens of comments regarding ATVs. The public participation period has been very wholesome on this topic. And so I thank all the members of the public who have sent in their comments. I'll speak for myself that I have certainly read them all. And I also want to hope that members of my council and our council have taken the opportunity to read these too, because that's what this is all about. I also want to caution people to remember that this is, again, public participation period. As part of this Zoom meeting format is not a simple process. And so I also want to acknowledge our staff, our deputy clerk, who has been receiving all of these. It's important for folks to remember when you're doing public participation to please use the forms that are online for this purpose. The deputy clerk has been very patient in preparing different emails that she's been receiving and including them in a public participation. We really ask that you use the correct forms online so that it's properly followed. So going forward, we hope that we can do that. Going forward, we hope that we can actually meet in person where we can do these type of public participations in person. So thank you very much for that. All right, council. Item number 5 is our deputations and presentations. There are none at this time. Item 6 is the public meeting, which I mentioned earlier when it came to the agenda. We will do that at 6:30. So we are now at item number 7. Approval of the council meeting minutes. Recommendation be it resolved that council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the minutes of the October 5th, 2020 council meeting as presented. Can I have a mover and seconder on the minutes, please? Mr. Walker, Ms. Deneen, Councillor Deneen. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Leishman.
I will be abstaining from the vote since I was not there.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank you very much for that. All right, members of council, any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Business arising from the minutes, if any? Any members of council, any business? Nope, not okay, none. Communications from the mayor. Item number 9.1 from our closed session. We do have a board appointment. It's in a bylaw a little bit later on in our agenda. So that was one of the items that we had part of our closed session. So we'll discuss that when we're having the bylaw. And the other items from closed session, we cannot discuss in open session at this time. 9.2 is the NVCA monthly newsletter. And item 9.3 is the Royal Canadian Legion Stainer branch in regards to the Poppy Fund. It's nice to see a few members are wearing poppies here tonight. I know that we're all going to be thinking of Remembrance Day coming up in another couple of weeks. So anybody have any questions from the communications from the mayor? Nothing on there? No. All right. Those are the items that were recorded as communications from the mayor. I may have other things to report when we go around the table as part of our ward report. So at this time, then I'll be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive the communications from the mayor for information. Any members of council have a mover and seconder? Mr. Walker and Mr. Broderick. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. All right, item 10 is our county report. And it did say there's no items, but I do believe our deputy mayor, deputy warden does have an item. So I'll turn it over to Deputy Mayor. How are you, sir? I think your microphone's there. Yes, sir. There you go.
I just get it unmuted and I move the thing and it flicks back in. Anyways, thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate that. Yeah, so as everybody's been hearing in the news about COVID in Simcoe Manor, I thought it was appropriate to report on what's happening at Simcoe Manor. As you are aware, that Simcoe County owns and operates 4 of the long-term care facilities. And we are 4 of the best in the province. And Simcoe Manor, which is the one in Beaton, is, as of Saturday, was day 22 since the COVID-19 outbreak was declared in Simcoe Manor, with 40 residents being tested positive for the virus, 28 staff members being tested positive, and unfortunately, 9 residents have passed away since that has happened. Now, some of these residents had other health issues. It wasn't just directly to COVID-19, but COVID-19 certainly played a part. RVH has been called in to assist with the staffing due to the positive tested staff members who are now in quarantine for 14 days. So we've been working and very closely with RVH staff to help fulfill the gaps. County staff continue to work diligently to protect the spread of the virus and the well-being of our residents. Our staff has just been very devastated how this virus even got in there with all their protection and all the precautions they were taking. But it's been very hard on staff that it's there and what they have to go through on a daily basis to protect our residents that they are so committed to doing. So that said, I would like to put forth a motion, Your Worship, if I may. I'd like to make a recommendation. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby send a letter of support to Simcoe Manor, showing our support and appreciation to all staff for the continued commitment to the care and well-being of their residents during the COVID-19 crisis. And a copy of the letter be sent to James Sinclair, General Manager of Health and Emergency Service for the County of Simcoe, and a copy to Warden Cornell for the County of Simcoe. And I would ask for a seconder for that.
Excellent motion, Deputy Mayor. The seconder will be Councillor McKechnie. I saw his card first. I'd like to comment, Deputy Mayor, that's an excellent motion, an excellent point to recognize the efforts of our staff at the county level who have been working diligently to protect residents. They, it's a very sad situation when the virus did come into that home, and they're fighting it every day, I'm sure. But I'd also like to tip of the hat and recognize all of the long-term care facilities in our region that have done a really good job. We've had a couple of small outbreaks, but overall they've done a really great job. And so it's hard work they're doing. So thank you for bringing this forward, Deputy Mayor. Any other members of council comments on this topic? All right, seeing none, we've got a mover and seconder, moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor McKechnie The motion will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting, and we will endeavor to get a letter out. Members of council, you've heard the motion? I'll call it. All those in favor? Well done. Thank you. That carries. Mr. Burton, we'll certainly have that letter prepared, and between you and I, we'll get that prepared almost right away. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Worship. And one other item I wanted to add into the county report, if I may, is tomorrow is our council meeting and committee of the whole, and tomorrow is nomination day for warden and deputy warden. So my term as deputy warden is coming to an end, which would end in December. And I just like to advise everybody that I have found two people from county who are going to nominate me and second that motion and support me in my second bid to run is for the second term as deputy warden for the county. So thank you.
Absolutely. Good luck with that, Deputy Mayor. You've done a fine job as deputy warden, so it'll be very good to see members of the county council continue to support that. Good luck. Look forward to it. Thank you. Any questions of the deputy mayor, deputy warden in regards to county reports? Nothing. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Your picture is a little sepia tone there, Councillor McCackey. I see your card. Please go right ahead.
I'm going to turn off my lights. That might be a little bit better. Hang on a second. I noticed that too. That looks a little bit better.
Looks a little bit better.
So I have a question. I have a question for the deputy mayor. So I was reading the county minutes. I think it was the last meeting. And am I right to understand that this governance committee now, one of the options on the table is actually to increase the size of county council to 33 members? Are we going to have is that one of the options, to have a separate warden that's not elected from the member or from the actual county councilors? Is that right, Barry? So from 32 to 30.
Yes, through the mayor. Yeah. So what's happened is the governance committee has met. We put forth in previous meetings. We put forth some recommendations, and one of those recommendations was how to reduce council size. County council rejected that proposal, and by a very close margin. So, but one of the things that were passed by county council was to look at having a dedicated full-time warden. So rather than the warden being one of the mayors or deputy mayors of county council, that there'd be a dedicated full-time warden who's committed full-time to the position of warden and full-time committed to the county without having ties to a particular township. And the thing was also proposed for deputy warden as well. So we are simply putting forth a motion at this upcoming meeting to ask county council to give us some direction as to, do they want us to look into those options further and report back, or do they not want us to do that? So that's basically the purpose of it. So it could, so two of the options are, one is 32 members with a dedicated warden, or 16 members with a dedicated warden, or vice versa. It could be 32 with a dedicated warden and deputy warden, and 16. So we're just asking county council to give us some direction on how they want us to move forward in preparing reports on having a dedicated warden. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. It's I was just a little bit shocked because I thought we were going to be reducing the size of county council, and then I saw one of the options was to actually increase the size, and I thought, oh, I was a bit shocked. Anyway, thanks very much. I know you're the chair of the governance committee, and I wouldn't want to be in your position. So anyway, thanks very much, Barry.
I would say it has been challenging. I don't say that.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor McCackey, for the question. All right, well, we look forward to that discussion at a county council tomorrow, and we'll see how that all plays out. Anybody else for anything further for the deputy mayor and deputy warden? and County? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to item number 11, which is our ward reports. I don't know if you're hearing it right now, but there's a guy doing maintenance outside the window right here. I think he's got some machine or something working on the grass outside. So I'm going to turn off my microphone and pass this directly over to Councillor Patterson. You'll be up first. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Okay, thanks very much. Besides the obvious, working on this ATV issue, which has taken up a lot of time. The other thing I can report is, given acceptance of their request, the NVCA has asked to come to present their 2021 budget on November 9th. So I think that request is in the clerk's office. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Broderick, you're next on my list. Following that will be Councillor Walker. Go ahead, Mr. Broderick.
Thank you, Your Worship. October the 13th, I attended the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting, and on October the 29th, I'll be attending the South Georgian Bay Tourism Association's AGM, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Broderick. Councillor Walker's next, followed by that to the Deputy Mayor once again.
Thank you, Your Worship. Other than next week, we have a youth committee meeting. And other than that, I just was at the arena this past Friday just to see how things are going. And all I can say is it's certainly a different setup than we've ever been used to before. That's all I got to say.
All right. Thank you very much, Councillor Walker. I concur. I also stopped at the arena on Saturday and saw some parents that were waiting for some Clearview Canucks and heard all about it. Good job. Deputy Mayor Burton, and then Councillor Denis. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. The only other thing I would mention is I mentioned County Council tomorrow. We got council today, and on Thursday, I as a provincial commissioner, I will be at the NEC meeting and participating in that.
Okay, very good, sir. Thank you for that. Councillor Deneen, and then Councillor Lamers. Go ahead, Phyllis. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Not much going on in the ward to report, but it's been since April 7th, the last time we made a donation to the food bank, the Clearview Stainer Food Bank, and we've gone past Thanksgiving and we're looking forward to Christmas. And I was just thinking I might bring forward a motion that we go and we donate another $10,000 to the food bank. It's been 6 months, over 6 months. And if I could get a seconder on that. And the last time we funded it through the community assistance grant, I'm wondering if that's pertinent to do it at this time as well.
Councillor Deneen, yeah. Did you anything further?
No, that's all. I'm just feeling my way along with that. I think it would be a pertinent and good timing to do that ahead of Christmas.
Fair enough. I appreciate that very much, and I'm sure that there is probably a need out there. The Deputy Mayor and Councillor Leishman, along with our Deputy Clerk, sit on a little committee to review these type of grant applications and or requests. Perhaps I can go to the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Leishman. Do you have any comment on what may or may not be available? Let's go to the Deputy Mayor first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, there is funding left in the last time I talked with the Deputy Clerk, there was still some funding left in the grant that we have, because there's the community grant that's specifically designed to help the COVID situation. So there's money left in there, and I think there's also some money left in the other community grants. So It would be probably just putting a request into there. I would think your worship would have a better idea rather than putting forth a motion. It would just be putting our request into as a grant application to support that. I know we have supported the food bank more than once. So.
Yes, fair enough. Councillor Leishman, did you want to add anything to that discussion?
Yes, I do believe there's still money left in the COVID fund, and I think that's probably where it should come from, if there's enough to cover the 10,000. I was thinking the same thing, so I'm glad Phyllis brought it forward. It's been a while since we gave them that 10, and I'm pretty sure they're probably out of it by now. Plus, with Christmas coming, there's going to be a bit more of a need. I'm pretty sure, obviously. So let's help them out. I think that's a good idea.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Leishman. In a positive light, Councillor Leishman is indicating her support, but I ask, would you be the seconder then, Councillor Leishman, on that motion? She's nodding her head, yes. Okay, Council, we have a motion and on the floor. Councillor Deneen, seconded by Councillor Leishman. Does anybody have any comments in regards to this? We've heard a little bit of discussion on it. All right, can I quickly get a comment from either Brenda, who is our deputy clerk, and or treasury, that would be appropriate, that we would have that type of funding available in either of those two accounts? I see Brenda has just popped up. Deputy clerk, any comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a matter of fact, the treasurer and I had been speaking about dissolving the remaining funds in the COVID grant, and that the Stainer Food Bank would be able to make use of that. I believe in talking to our treasurer that there is $4,000 left in the COVID grant. There are some funds left in the annual community assistance grants, which we can also possibly take some of the funds from there should council wish to actually use the $10,000 to fund the Stainer Food Bank.
I see that. Thank you for that, Deputy Clerk. I see the treasurer's joined us. Hello, Madam Treasurer. I guess you want to support that recommendation from Brenda. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Brenda and I have been discussing it, and I think the COVID funding is the best source to begin with. And then if council would prefer it to go to $10,000, we can look to the remaining community assistance grants from 2020.
All right. Tell you what, if I may, Councillor Deneen and Councillor Leishman, as the movers and seconder, can I ask you to amend that to a report back to our next council meeting from our treasurer as to where that funding would come from? And then we'll pass it on the 9th. Does that make sense?
That's fine with me, thank you.
Comfortable?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I'm okay.
Okay, so council, what I'm asking then is we, because we don't have exact information right here at this stage, I would ask that between our treasurer and our deputy clerk, we have a simple report that can be brought to the table that the deputy mayor and Councillor Leishman as the grant committee can simply review it, and then we'll have it presented at that time. Everybody comfortable with that recommendation? I think that's really wholesome. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we got a mover and seconder on the floor. I'll ask if there's anything further. Nothing further. All those in favor? Thank you, council. That carries. And Councillor Deneen, we're still on you. Is there anything further you'd like to add?
No, I think that's sufficient. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much for that. All right, Councillor Lamers is next, then Councillor McKechnie, and then Leishman. Go ahead, Councillor Lamers.
Thank you, Your Worship. We had a good Thanksgiving with a small part of the family, and then spent the last couple of weeks on the phone reading emails, answering emails about the ATVs. It'll be good to get that voted on tonight and off our agenda so we can get on to other things. And then Sunday, October 25th, I had a small social distancing come and go tea for my mother-in-law's 80th birthday party, and presented her with the township plaque, and we got different ones from other parts of our government. And on the 27th, tomorrow, I've got a Brentwood Hall Board meeting. And then on November 7th, we're going to be doing laying the wreaths at New Lowell Legion for Remembrance Day, since they can't have parades this year.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for, first of all, well, congratulations to your mother-in-law. That's wonderful. And thank you for representing Clearview at a very small wreath laying ceremony. Again, Remembrance Day this year is certainly going to be very different across our whole community. And we're still working out the details in Stayner in regards to the Stayner cenotaph. So we'll certainly have some information about that coming forward at a later time. Thank you, Councillor Lamers. Councillor McKechnie, you're next then, Councillor Leishman. Go ahead, Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Your Worship. So fairly quiet, busy with the ATV situation. Tomorrow I'll be watching County Council, watching the Deputy Mayor do his nomination speech. And Thursday I'll also watch him at the Niagara Escarpment Commission as well. I was, the only meeting basically was a Creemore BIA meeting. And at that meeting, I was directed to bring a motion to council to reopen the washrooms at the station on the green, or to direct the staff to do that. But you'll see the motion at the end of the agenda to that effect. But I believe Mr. Vachon and the BIA have come up with a solution. And I haven't talked to the BIA, but I still have to consult with them. But I'm sure that motion, that notice of motion that you see at the end of the agenda will be removed once I talk to the Creemore BIA. So it appears there's been a resolution to that. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Councillor McKechnie, for sure. You know, it's been a difficult summer for sure when it comes to washrooms, and we've discussed it across the whole community, and glad that we're able to get some type of resolution in here that can support business people when it comes to these washrooms. So, boy, it's I never thought washrooms would be so complicated. Thank you, Councillor McKechnie. I appreciate it. Councillor Leishman, first of all, welcome back. I'm really glad to see that you're joining us again, and you're looking great. And I'm glad that you're able to come back and join us at council. So on behalf of the whole community, we're really happy to see you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think I'm glad to be back. Can't say that I missed it really, quite frankly. I kind of enjoyed just stepping away for a while. But I have to say that I think you've all noticed how beautiful our township has been this fall. We have had glorious colors. It's just been stunning and outstanding. So I think that's why we've had a lot of visitors. I don't know. I think you might want to say that. But on Friday night, when we had our tornado and right in the middle of a downpour, we had a terrible accident on our corner. And I'd like to thank the firefighters for being there within 2 minutes. The ambulance, Rory, and the fire truck rescue crew came in, and there was a car in the farm field, way in the farm field. So we kind of think it went airborne. There was a family of 4 in it and a truck with, I believe, 2 people and no serious injuries. And I don't know how, because the noise was so loud that we got up from our chairs and looked out the window. We couldn't see a thing except lights flashing. So good kudos to you all. You did a great job. It was terrible conditions. And I'm so proud of Clearview firefighters. I really am. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Councillor Leishman. And, you know, it's, what's the line? Yeah, better to have called us and not need us than to not call us when you need us, sort of thing. It's a firefighter thing. And it's really glad that they're there when we need them. And they certainly have demonstrated that. It's a great thing. Thank you very much for that. I'm glad everyone was safe, by the way. That was an interesting bit of downpour there that I was coming home on Friday, coming along County Road 124, and there was quite a lowering in the clouds. It's certainly an ominous thing to see, the clouds lowering and the darkening going on. And yeah, I thought it was going to be a tornado for sure. Anyway, thank you very much, Councillor. Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you're here.
I'm sorry. I have library and I had chamber this week. The chamber has requested that they have a line, or they have a way of getting bunches for our bus stops, some of our bus stops, if they're able to accommodate them. And I will be talking to staff about that and bringing it to council, because I think we have to decide it, but just so you know, it's coming.
All right,
But bus stop benches, that's good.
that's great. All right, well, thank you very much, Councillor Leishman. So Council, one other thing I wanted to add is that at your direction, which seems like months and months and months ago, I was asked to join a physician recruitment committee that is actually hosted by the town of Blue Mountains. And the committee is made up of members from the town of Collingwood, the town of Blue Mountains, Grey Highlands, Meaford, members of both the community and members of council. And so I've met twice now with this committee, and they've, as a committee, they've sent off an ask, which we will have an opportunity to discuss at our budget meeting, a little bit of financial support for that committee. And the other ask is that whether we have any members from the public that may be interested in joining that committee. It's a committee run by the town of Blue Mountains, so it won't fall underneath the same pattern as our committees here at Clearview, but it is a committee nevertheless, and it does serve the interests of our community. So through the clerk's office of the town of Blue Mountains, there may be some advertising that will appear looking for a member to join the physician recruitment committee. And so I want to take the opportunity at this council meeting to advise both all of you as well as members of the public that we will, as a committee, will be looking for some citizens to put forward their name for that committee. Obviously, physician recruitment is really important to our whole region, and so it's as we're a growing community, we're certainly going to have more need for it. The committee is not part of the Collingwood General Marine Hospital. It is a part of a group of councils getting together to do this work. And so it's just want to be clear, it's not working, it's not part of the hospital, it's part of a separate group. So I just want to share that with everybody. If you had any questions, don't be afraid to let me know. And we meet monthly to discuss how we can recruit physicians to our great communities. So there you go. All right, that's really all I had. And so happy to move on in the agenda. Council, anything further? All right, we're going to move on to item number 12, which is our department reports. So we've got a few department reports we can get to. We've got another 20 minutes before our public meeting starts. So we'll get to that. Item 12 is community services. So we've got a recommendation that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive CS 040-2020, a report for information, which is CS 044, the draft plan extension for Clearview Developments at 3977 County Road 124. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Committee of Adjustment. Okay, actually, I see what's going on here. The agenda has these two bunched together, so I'm going to separate them. Recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive CS 040-2020 Committee of Adjustment October 2020 report for information. End. Can I have a mover? That'd be Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Walker. Any questions or comments on the Committee of Adjustment report? All right, seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Thank you. Committee of Adjustment report carries. And immediately attached to that is CS 044, a draft plan extension for Clearview Developments, Inc., County Road 124. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive CS 044-2020 regarding a request for an extension to a draft plan approval of the Del Zotto Nottawa file number 108 2006 003 SD. And item 2, that Council approves the draft plan extension for a 5-year period with a lapsing date of October 26, 2025. Okay, on the floor with a mover and seconder, and I see we got some staff. I have a mover and seconder, please. Roderick, seconded by Lamers. Thank you very much. Hello, staff. Nice to see you, Ms. Workman, Ms. Burton. Who is going to lead this discussion?
I'm happy to lead the discussion or answer questions should council have any. Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor Measures.
All
I
right.
would also just like to point out that we do have the owner's planning consultant, Chris Menzies, also joining us.
Oh,
From
her name
MHBC.
popped up. Yes, I see her there. Very good. All right, welcome, Ms. Menzies. And Deputy Mayor Burton is the first one with the card up already. So go ahead, Mr. Burton.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this, from what I see, this was original file is from 2006. So it's been 14 years. Now they're asking for another 5-year extension. Like, what seems to be the delay from moving forward?
That's a great question. Ms. Burton or Ms. Workman, go ahead.
Sure, I can attempt to answer that question. I think, Deputy Mayor Burton, this has been like a lot of the subdivisions in our township. There tends to be a bit of a trend in carrying on for some time before development occurs. And you'll note now in Stainer, we're sort of getting to some of those subdivisions that have also, been in the works for roughly the same time, around 15 years. In any case, the biggest concern with this one is servicing. And I think you're aware that there's likely a couple options for this. But this, in my mind, I think right now we're working on development in Stainer. And so not that I don't think the developer and his team is not trying to move forward, but it will be, the servicing of this development will be one of those bigger challenges. So.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Burton again.
Yeah, as a follow-up, so can we realistically expect to see some development shovels in the ground in the next 5 years? Or are we just stalling for another 5 years? Like, is it realistic to expect, is it going to be some actual happening in the next 5 years and things moving forward?
Ms. Workman or Ms. Burton?
I can try to take that one. Thank you, Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor Burton. The big thing, of course, is that it has to come probably from the town of Collingwood, and the servicing was included in their EA. It is a ways before it's likely to be brought to Nottawa. That doesn't necessarily mean that the draft plan is not a good draft plan that we would want to keep on the books for that purpose. I think often we talk about the need to provide housing. Supply seems to be a big problem in affordability, and it could very well be beyond the 5 years. But whether or not we want to have the applicants start all over again with a new plan is a question that I guess would have to come to council. The other option, I suppose, is that as we work through our official plan, we'll be seeking input, and there's always the potential to even address the whole question of servicing for Nottawa. And I know that's something that Councillor Christie was very interested in looking at. And so through our official plan process, I think it may be very diligent for us to maintain this plan while we find out what the outcome of our official plan is. Because one option may be to revise the plan so that it's on private servicing, which would be a substantial revision, but is still something that might be possible. So I don't think that the plan is a bad plan and is something that needs to go back to the drawing board, but it is reliant on servicing.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your.
Two other councillors. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for your indulgence. So part of the issue that I have with this, and I'm prepared to support the motion for the 5-year extension. The problem is there are properties in Ottawa, large properties that could be severed to build an individual house on with private services, but they're being held back from doing severances because of this potential development and this potential servicing that may or may not happen. I really feel we need to find a way, whether it's change the borders of the development area so that these properties, and I know Mr. Christie's property was one of them, where certainly had a large enough property to do a severance and still build a house with private services on that, on a substantial sized lot. I think that's something we need to work towards happening, because to hold these people up for another, it's been 14 years, for another 5 years, and they can't sever their lots and they can't do anything, I think is unreasonable.
Thank you for that. Ms. Burton, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I think it's a very good question, and it's certainly been on the mind of the planning department as well, as to what the future is for this development and the future for the existing lots in Nottawa. So, I think at the very least, it would probably be prudent to at least extend this draft plan long enough that would allow council to determine through the OP process, do we want to allow Nottawa to develop on private services and allow the severances, or do you want to, go down the other path, which is full servicing, and in which case then typically you wouldn't allow severances because it would interfere with the future opportunities for full service. But really, that is a question for council, and a question obviously in consultation with the public in Nottawa. And a question for the developers, in this case, one developer, about, is it financially viable to bring services to Nottawa? So it's most definitely a large question, but maybe we need to give this project a little bit of time so that we can answer that question. So, be it 3 years or 5 years or whatever, council shall have. We don't have the answers today.
Thank you. I have McKechnie, Patterson, and then Walker. So McKechnie, you're next, sir.
My question was answered, Your Worship. Thank you.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Patterson is next. Go ahead.
Yeah, my questions were, and my comments were around the idea of moving to full services in the Nottawa area. It's been a long time. They're not part of our municipal water system. I know the original proposal from Del Zardo was to come up with some kind of an innovative design that would be another separate system. First point I'd like to know from the timing point of view is, is the 5 year because it aligns with the Collingwood plan, or is the Collingwood plan ready before the 5 year period would be needed? Could it be activated?
Ms. Workman?
Oh, thank you, Mayor Measures. The 5 years is kind of been our new normal for draft plan extensions, and it really doesn't have any bearing on Collingwood at all.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so if I may, then
one follow-up, please. Yep.
So then the concern I would have in giving the 5 year is the time in between, where we have some fairly significant decisions to make. One is private versus municipal services, and the issues that were raised in the previous discussions. Can we not? And I'm glad that the agent's representative is, or the owner's representative is here. Can we not have some kind of progress on a plan or a series of options? I don't know if I accept this as our new normal when this has been going on for so long, and the issues are fairly well known, not defined, and I'd hate to see us wait 3 or 4 years down the way and still not have good viable options before us. So I might consider a 5 year, if you like, the new normal with conditions, or 3 years to see if we can get them off the table, off their the delay, and stimulate some real work on this project in terms of how to serve Nottawa and the subdivision itself.
All right, Councillor Patterson, I appreciate those comments. Ms. Burton, you mentioned the official plan. Can you outline for us where we are with that, and would that, of course, fall within the 5-year period that we could have a good look at Nottawa and perhaps proceed with former Councillor Christie's intention of a meeting with the residents that I'm sure Councillor Deneen would certainly want to host. Ms. Burton?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Well, the official plan is behind, and that is largely due to the COVID-19 issue. So that's kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, I think we were all dealing with a number of things. Really the question of servicing is twofold: cost to the developer and cost to the resident in Nottawa. So it is a big issue for council to deal with. And right now, the way the official plan is set up is that this development would go forward with full servicing, basically from the town of Collingwood. Their EA doesn't really necessarily anticipate that servicing will happen for quite some time, and I would expect beyond the 5 years. However, in talking with the CAO, he will say, well, money can change everything. And, if there was an opportunity there that could change that and maybe bump that timeline up, then that could potentially be possible. So to get to your core question about the official plan, I think really the way it is right now, Nottawa, our official plan anticipates that Nottawa be serviced. Should council, through the OP process, decide that they want to go a different way, then what would happen is we would basically make amendment to the draft plan and say that the draft plan would have to be done on private services potentially, or you would let the draft plan expire. So those would kind of be your opportunities if you chose to not go down the road of servicing Nottawa, or at least not in the foreseeable future, right? Otherwise, the project and Nottawa, the plan right now says to wait until it can be fully serviced. One way or the other, it really comes down to money. Did that answer your question?
It answers my question. I hope it answers Councillor Patterson's. And I think the point is that I think this council and previous councils, certainly myself as a former ward representative, this issue about servicing Nottawa continues to be right in front of us, and we as a council do need to come forward with some resolution on that. And believe me, it's not just this particular development. There are residents in the village that want it. There's also clearly residents who don't want it. So we need to have that meeting. We need to move forward with that. And I think that we need to get something done here. I think this is just a first step in it, though, in getting us there by pushing this 5-year extension out and allows us to continue to have this discussion. Councillor Patterson, I acknowledge you asked for another question. However, I'm going to go to Councillor Walker because he has questions, and then if there's nothing further, I'll come back to you. Councillor Walker, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to say, first of all, that when being on council, when this came forward, we knew at that time that this was going to be a lengthy process, hoping that it would not have been as long as it has been, that a solution could have been reached a little sooner than what we are now, where we haven't got a solution at all yet. So to give it the extension of 5 years with the hopes that we can come up with an agreeable solution or work towards a solution anyways, I think is fair and appropriate to the developer and to ourselves, to give us some time to move forward and get it going. The other thing is that in your subject lands on your report, it's got it on the west side of 124. So I just wanted to correct and make sure that it's the east side of 124 on the southeast corner. Thank you.
Thank you for
got that?
correcting my
Okay.
error. Thanks.
And I appreciate your comment there about 2006, Councillor Walker. It's been hanging around since then. Okay, Councillor Lamers is next. Go ahead, Councillor Lamers.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, this has been going on for a long time. Over the years, has Mr. Delzato been working with staff to try to rectify anything, or has he just been letting the 5 years go and keep pushing back for another 5 years?
Good question. Ms. Burton?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We have met with Mr. Delzato before about doing some alternative technologies. However, the township wasn't satisfied with the alternative technologies. So really, we're looking at approved MOE full servicing from Collingwood or potentially full private services. I think that's really where we are right now with this development, but he has looked at alternatives. However, those alternatives have not been satisfactory to the municipality.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Ms. Workman, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add as well that I believe that the owner has also been working behind the scenes with the town of Collingwood and has established some infrastructure financing with the town of Collingwood. So I think you can appreciate that sometimes these things don't move as quickly when you're working with another township, especially like the town of Collingwood, who, you know, it's a bigger organization, lots of players. So in all fairness, I do believe that the owner has been working towards solutions. It's just not moving as quickly probably as he likes. And, you know, it is showing that. So I just wanted to point that out.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions? Looking for anybody else? Councillor Patterson, did you have another one that you wanted to jump in? I didn't recognize your card a minute ago.
Yes, thank you for that. Well, I would consider the 5-year, if there was a clear commitment as it's outlined in our new normal, and I don't see that. So I can't vote for a 5-year extension. I'd be willing to take a look at it again if the clear commitment would include some indication of how working with the town of Collingwood and ourselves, and then the consideration of full servicing for Ottawa is in the picture. I don't see how anyone can accept a clear position when there's so many things up in the air. So I won't be approving the 5-year. I won't be voting for the 5-year.
All right, well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Anybody else with any other questions or comments? All right, I'm just going to acknowledge that Ms. Menzies is online, and it looks like Mr. Delzato is online as well. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Menzies. We've had a pretty good discussion on it. Would you have any last comments that you'd like to add in regards to the delay that this project has seen, Ms. Menzies?
So thank you, I would. Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, and also thank Ms. Workman and Ms. Burton for fielding all of those questions. As planning staff has said, this has been a very long process, and the advent of servicing on the property is a bit of a symbiotic relationship with two municipalities, the Township of Clearview, because as Ms. Workman has pointed out in OPA 10, as well as in the draft plan conditions, anything that Mr. Delzato does to move this forward has to be acceptable to the town of Clearview, and the Clearview has to enter into a servicing agreement with the contributing municipality. We have looked at options like providing services from Wasaga Beach, providing services from Collingwood, providing services in conjunction with the employment users that are adjacent to the airport. Alternative technologies. We participated in the municipality's original EA related to this servicing, which was about 12 or 15 years ago. That EA has lapsed. And we have, as Ms. Workman has identified, provided a financial contribution to the town of Collingwood, who oversized a pipe in order for this to happen, should it happen. One thing I would ask council to consider is, once again, this has been a lengthy process. We don't have solutions yet. We are now waiting with bated breath for the town of Collingwood to finish their water treatment EA, because that will likely be part of this solution, is that if council has aspirations to bring services into Ottawa, I would suggest with respect that this development is the catalyst for that, because there would have to be an oversizing that is paid for by this developer in order to bring services into this area, and the draft plan conditions say the municipality will make best efforts to recoup. If we're not there and at the table, I would suggest to you that the option of full servicing is probably gone. So I'm happy to answer any questions, Your Worship, and we would just like, once again, for consideration of the 5 years, because not only are we looking for a servicing solution, there are many conditions here that we need to satisfy, and that typically is a multi-year process. I will tell council there is one condition that we have satisfied, and it's the archaeology condition. A lot of the rest of the conditions are engineering in nature. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Menzies. And it's, first of all, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time. And I appreciate the work that you are having to do with all of our staff to keep this on the table. And it's been a long process, that's for sure. Anybody else with any other questions or comments? All right, I'm prepared to call the motion. Oh, yes, Councillor Janine, go ahead.
I was just wondering, through yourself to Chris, the Collingwood EA, what's the timeline on that? Is it started? Have they given you any indication of when they might be through with that?
Good question, Councillor Janine. To Ms. Menzies, would you have any comment on it?
I will admit that I'm not intimately following what's happening with the EA because it has to run its course. But they have recently announced the commencement of the EA. I believe they're still within an 18-month process at this point in time, but perhaps Mr. Sage has a better handle on it.
Mr. Sage, have you got any comment on the EA from Collingwood or even Ms. Burton? Mr. Sage, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could, Mayor Measures, Ms. Menzies is 100% correct. I'm thinking 18 to 20 months, and then that's to come up with a preferred solution. And then we all know what happens after that. Then we got to fund it. Then we got to build it. So right away, we're 4.5 years out. So, and if I could just make one comment, I know we struggle supporting the 5-year extensions when it's been 14 years already. But Ms. Menzies' comment about the developer being a key player in the extension of full services to Ottawa is critical, and vice versa. A whole lot of players cuts the price per lot to everybody. And similar to when we reached agreement with Wasaga Beach, it was council's initiative that pushed the process to come up with a servicing solution for Stayner. I think you have to, council, you have to dig down and decide, do you want to move forward with at least considering servicing Ottawa? And I'm pretty sure that Mr. Delzato and Ms. Menzies would be a great partner with that process. But you, council, have got to come up, you got to make that decision. And if you want the development in Ottawa to happen quicker, make a decision on Ottawa, and that'll be the fastest way to get it done. Thanks.
Mr. Sage, anybody else? All right, council, you've heard the motion. We've got a mover and seconder. It's been an excellent discussion, and a lot of balls in the air on this one. Let's hope we can bring some through the basket here soon. Members of council, I've got a motion. I'm prepared to call it. All those in favor? Are those opposed? And motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Ms. Menzies. Thank you, Mr. Delzato. So, council, it is 6:33. Is that correct? Yeah, 6:33. At this point, we're going to go back to item number 6 on our agenda. The deputy mayor will chair the public meeting portion of the council meeting. And then following that public meeting, we will immediately move to 3 items in regards to ATV discussion. So at this point, Ms. Clerk, please record that I'll pass the chair over to the deputy mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Your Worship, for that. We will now initiate the public meeting portion of tonight's agenda. We thank everyone who provided written comments ahead of tonight's public meeting. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Township of Clearview on an application being discussed this evening, please contact the planning department in charge or planning person in charge of the file. This information will be provided in the presentation. As identified in the notice of public meeting, please be advised that your written comments or request to be notified will form part of a public record. Your communication and any personal information therein will be made available to the public unless you expressly request its removal. If a person or public body does not make written submission to the township with respect to the proposed application before a decision is made or a bylaw is passed, they are not entitled to appeal the decision to the local appeal tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal unless in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The following public meetings will involve a brief presentation by our planning staff, including a brief explanation of the written comments received, an opportunity for the applicant or their agent to present their application and respond to the written comments, and an opportunity for questions by council. We will now begin in the public meeting with respect to file number 2020-029-ZB Nottawasaga Station. I will now ask our planning people, and I believe that's Ms. Burton is going to take the lead on this.
Actually, I'm pass that over to Nick Ainley.
Sorry, Nick.
Not a problem. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My name is Nick Ainley. I'm a planner here at the Township of Clearview, and I'm here tonight to facilitate the public meeting. So let me share my screen. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. As indicated, I'm here tonight to facilitate the public meeting for zoning bylaw amendment 2020-029-ZB. So the proposal itself, so basically the applicant is seeking to amend a portion of the subject land's existing zoning from a stormwater management facility or SM zone to a residential multiple low density exception 4 zone or RS3-4. The proposed amendment will enable the subject lands to be utilized for residential use, and its passing would also facilitate the pending Planning Act application for the further subdivision of the property into 3 single attached dwelling lots. The subject lands themselves are located at 205 Prescott Drive, as you can see here. So this block of land is actually located within the phase 1 of the approved Nottawasaga Station plan of subdivision. And in terms of the zoning, so the lands are actually subject to zoning. So you can see here the area outlined red is the overall subject lands, with the northeast corner that's currently zoned as RS3-4, with the lower portion that's outlined in pink here. That's actually currently zoned as stormwater management and is subject to the current rezoning tonight. So in terms of the existing official plan and zoning bylaw policies, so as indicated in the map here, you can see the subject lands are designated as residential within the township official plan, as indicated in yellow, the rear yellow hatching. And then again, a little tricky to see, but the subject lands are currently designated as RS3-4 on the northeastern portion, with the remainder zoned as stormwater management facility. And the subject land is not shown on this map, but they are wholly located within the NVCA regulatory area as well. So in terms of notice of zoning bylaw amendment tonight, this was given in accordance with the Planning Act. It was done on October 6th, 2020. It was done via mailing to all residents within 120 meters of the subject lands, as well as a posting of a sign on this property. Details application and supporting materials have been available for public review and have also been circulated to external commenting agencies for consideration. So this is just a circulation map of which properties were actually mailed out the notice. So you can see the overall subject lands are highlighted in orange here, with the tan properties being the ones that actually received the notice via mail. So in terms of public comments, because as we are digital, comments received will be read and summarized by myself tonight. And they are typically forwarded on to the applicant as well as council. So we did receive one comment from the NVCA. However, it was a comment of no objection or concern with the proposal. So I didn't necessarily circulate it in this circumstance, but they do not have a concern in this circumstance with the application. So in terms of the review process, tonight is the public meeting. Following tonight, staff will consider all comments that are received, and we will provide a recommendation report at a subsequent council meeting. At that meeting, council can choose to approve or deny the application. And then following that decision, appeal period of 20 days will follow. And if no appeals are received, the decision comes into full force and effect. This is my contact information. So if anyone is viewing tonight does have any comments or concerns, they can contact me or email me here. And I understand that the applicants are also joining us tonight. So if you do have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them, or I can also direct them to the applicant. But that would be my presentation for this evening. So I will attempt to.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Does the applicant or their agent, is there anybody present there, Nick? And if they have anything they wanted to add to the presentation?
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and council members and township staff. My name is Glenn Wellings. I am planning consultant for McPherson. And Mr. Chairman, I don't really have anything to add to Mr. Ainley's presentation. I think the application's pretty straightforward. The lots are consistent with what surrounds these subject lands, and I would suggest that it's a pretty sensitive infill and intensification of lands that are no longer required for stormwater management purposes. So I'm happy to answer any question. I thank Mr. Ainley for his presentation, and nice to join you tonight.
Thank you, sir. Any member of council have any questions that they wish to ask Mr. Ainley or Mr. Wellens? Going once? Oh, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick one. So I think I understand it. So the stormwater management plan is still as it's indicated, and the pink outline land to be rezoned is simply surplus to the stormwater management. Is that the idea? And then I heard your last comment about the remediation to make it suitable for a residential lot. So
Correct.
thank you.
Yes, through to the chair, to Councillor Patterson, that is correct. The subject lands were originally for the stormwater management plan, but through further review and design have been determined not to be. So it's simply rezoning those lands to a suitable use, which in this case would be for residential.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from member of council? Going once? Going twice? Going a third time? This concludes the public meeting with respect to tonight's file. On tonight's evening's agenda, we thank all who provided written comments and for their interest in this matter. All input received with regard to this proposal will be fully considered by staff in their recommendations and by council in their decision with respect to this application. A report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future meeting. In other words, we will not be making that decision tonight. We will now turn the chair back to his worship and back to our regular council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. And thank you to Mr. Welling and Mr. Ainley for joining us. Ms. Burton is still there too. That's great. All right, members of council and for members of the public, we amended our agenda a little bit. And I stated that we would move our ATV discussion to this point in the agenda. And so I'd ask you to refer to your agendas, look at PW 021-2020, the off-road vehicle access on municipal road allowances. Subsequent to this discussion, we'll also have a discussion about item number 11-2, which is Councillor Patterson's councillor report. And then subsequent to that passing, we will then have a bylaw number 20-71. So this is obviously going to be a good discussion. I see we have Mr. Perot here with us. I know our CAO is with us. Our clerk is also with us, and I'm going to draw upon her in a moment. I just want to start off by suggesting for members of council, the Public Works report that Mr. Perot has, we are going to pick up our discussion where we were at our last meeting. If you recall, Councillor McKechnie, you had suggested we have a deferral to this meeting, which we did. However, we did have a couple of amendments that had already been made, and Mr. Perot has acted upon those amendments in anticipation of this meeting. I would ask that we would continue this discussion and ask for other amendments or changes or questions of Mr. Perot or staff. And so we will have an opportunity to amend or adjust this report and subsequent bylaw. Is there any questions before I move on about that procedure? Everybody comfortable? All right, thank you. Mr. Perot, actually, I'm going to halt just for a second. Miss Pam Fettis, our clerk, could you please join us for a moment? My question to you, Miss Clerk, will be, can you just confirm our mover and seconder on the original motion?
Yes, Your Worship. I am just pulling the file now, so just bear with me for 2 seconds here.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to be assured that everybody knows that we're still carrying on with the original mover and seconder, or not, depending on what the result is here.
Sorry, just 2 seconds here. The movers and seconders for the ATV access and draft bylaw PW 021-2020 was Councillor Lamers and Councillor Deneen.
Okay, Councillor Lamers and Councillor Deneen. All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Just going to confirm with Councillor Lamers and Deneen that you're continuing as the mover and seconder as this meeting is now continuing our previous discussion. Councillor Lamers, affirmative? Yep, thank you. Okay, so that's good. Everybody's clear. All right, Council, I'm going to ask Mr. Perot to just review some of the work that he's done subsequent to our last discussion on this. Mr. Perot?
Thank you, Your Worship. As you had outlined, this is a continuation of the deferral from the September 28th meeting, wherein I have not changed my report other than the attachment number 6, I believe it is, based off of the amendments that were approved by council at that meeting. One being Councillor Deneen's approved amendments being allowing ATV access on Fairgrounds Road from County Road 91 down to 2122 Side Road, and the portion of the 6th line that is already part of the existing OFATV trail, which on attachment 6 is now shown in green. So the green section or the green route is the existing ATV access bylaw. Then I moved on. We went and did some amendments to the map based off of Deputy Mayor Burton's approved amendment, as far as the not allowing access in the Niagara Escarpment area, portions of roadways in which, or sorry, not roadways, road allowances that are not accessible within that NEC area. So essentially, red means no go. Access would not be allowed on those roads that are shown in red. The thicker roads are, the thicker layered roads are highway and county roads, and the thinner red roads would be road allowances and where ATV access would not be allowed.
All right, so Mr. Perot, and Mr. Sage conducted a tour with Deputy Mayor Burton, Councillor Patterson, Councillor McKechnie, and myself of some of the NEC area and some portions of roadway that are just outside of the NEC area, but certainly significant low maintenance or sometimes no maintenance roads. And from that discussion, a clarity of Deputy Mayor Burton's NEC request was drawn up, and the map Schedule C that is now presented is in fact different than what was presented on the 28th of September. So effectively, that's the only change that's come from your report. Is that correct, Mr. Perot?
That is correct. The staff did not change that based on it being before council, and that it was in discussion and only had been deferred to this meeting.
All right, good. So anyway, for members of council, members of the public, I just want to make sure that that's very clear, that we didn't make any crazy changes here or anything. We just worked with the amendments that were presented. So at this point, I think that what we need to do is to hear any further amendments that members of council would like to bring forward, any suggestions, any comments about items that are in the report. And so I'm going to open the floor for members that have amendments. And I see I've got Deputy Mayor, and then I see Patterson, and then I see McKechnie. So So I'm writing these down. Deputy Mayor, you go ahead while I continue to write.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just, first of all, let me thank Mr. Sage and Mr. Perot for the excellent road tour they organized for us, and the details that they spent the time to meet with the NEC and go over the details of the protected areas that were important to do. That said, I've reviewed what the map is indicating now, and I've reviewed all the several emails that I've received, and recognizing that there are, members of the community that want to support ATV use on some of our roads. They maybe want all the roads, but I can certainly see where they want to use some of the roads, and I can see where that would probably be a benefit to them. But I also see the areas where citizens have real concerns. So I have an amendment that I'd like to put forward. And I have an amendment to draft ATV ORV bylaw PW-021-2020 that the area in roads and road allowances bordered by the lands south of County Road 9 down to the Clearview Mulmer town line and between Airport Road, which is County Road 42, on the east and County Road 124 to the west be prohibited for use by ATVs and ORV type vehicles, and that this described area be added to Schedule B of the bylaw PW-021-20. Thank you.
That's an amendment. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Patterson is the seconder. Deputy Mayor, I'll give you an opportunity to make any further comments on that, and then I'll ask for questions.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I think I made my comments. I'd be glad to answer any questions that Councillor or anybody else might have. But I think it's important to recognize those who want ATVs and do as much as we can to assist them. As I did in the original application way back when, 3 or 4 years ago, we worked with them to create a plan and an area they could go. So I'm willing to work with them to give them some extra allowances, but I also, like I said, support particularly Ward 5, where they are there's a huge majority that are concerned and wish not to have ATVs in the area. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Questions to the Deputy Mayor from any members of Council? Questions to the Deputy Mayor from any members of Council to the amendment? Questions of the amendment? All right. My only comment then, if I have no questions, Deputy Mayor, I believe that Clearview Township, we need to pass bylaws that impact our residents, all of our residents, equally and fairly across the entire township. And so by prohibiting in this area that you're suggesting, it's actually opposite to the objective of passing bylaws that serve the entire township. And so I believe there are residents within the township in that particular area that then would be discriminated against. So I would not be supporting that amendment. And I appreciated our discussions and conversations we've had about this, Deputy Mayor. I find that it's just a difference of opinion between you and I. And so I respect you, but I'm not going to be supportive of that motion. Nothing further from members of Council?
Your Worship, if I may, and I just want to say thank you for the comments. I also respect your opinions, and I agree with you. It is a difference of opinion, and I certainly respect your position, and respectfully understand your position that you won't support this, and I can totally understand that.
All right, thank you very much. Members of Council, anything further? All right, then on this motion that the Deputy Mayor has brought forward, to paraphrase, south of County Road 9, west of County Road 42 to County Road 124, and south to the Mulmer and Ottawasaga town line prohibited. Members of Council, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And those opposed? Looks like that motion carries. That motion carries. Members of Council, is there any other amendments that we'd like to see on the agenda? Sorry, I already had a list going. Patterson, McKechnie. Patterson first, then McKechnie.
Okay, it would be helpful if we had a map up, but I'll try to describe the next area. 1213, west of Nottawasaga Concession 5. And from the portion of that road as it extends westward, from the sign that says no winter maintenance, essentially is what it says, to the road allowance that would be concession 6, doesn't exist. Maybe get a staff comment as to why we wouldn't include that as part of the prohibited, since it's kind of, they get kind of blocked in. They can't go north, south, east, or west once they hit the corner of concession 6. Now that would be helpful.
Tell you what, Councillor Patterson, how about I ask for a seconder and then we'll get comments. Is there a seconder on the motion? I can't see everybody. I'll go with the deputy mayor. All right. I see we've got a map up. I'm not sure who is sharing this, actually. I didn't catch that. I was looking down when that happened. Is that you, Madam Clerk?
It is, Your Worship. I was just
Okay.
wondering if Councillor Patterson could just repeat that again, just so I get it for the record.
Okay, concession 1213. West from Fairgrounds Road, west of concession 5. There's some houses down in the hollow, and then it hits a road where there is a sign that says no winter maintenance beyond this point. Pretty rough road. And then it works its way eventually to what would be concession 6 if it existed. I think CIO Sage knows this better than anybody. I think he's itching to comment, so.
CIO Sage or the deputy director, are you online there? You want to comment on that? I mean, I can put my finger right on it here, but that's not going to help because we need Pam's with her mouse to move her mouse to where it would be. So,
Your Worship, can I ask who's sharing their screen?
I think that would be Pam.
Now it's gone.
Yeah.
Would you like me, Your Worship, to share the screen so I can point it out?
If you have access to it, please go right ahead. Thank you.
You know where it is, eh, Dan?
Yeah. Just take me a second here to get to it.
Is that the one that comes across the top of the hill and comes down that washes out?
Yes.
10 Hill West. The top of 10 Hill West.
Yeah.
But I think if you look on the map, they're already marked off.
Everybody see my screen now?
We sure can, Dan. I'm seeing you move your mouse. Yeah.
Yeah, so move westward from that. Yeah, in that section there, yes.
Right here. That's where you're talking about, Councillor Patterson?
Yes. And whatever's left of the roads on 6 at the intersection there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Sage.
So, Your Worship, if I could comment. So, Dan, where your cursor's sitting, the north-south gray portion, so there's a dark black to the right of your cursor, but the north-south gray portion is what Councillor Patterson's referring to as concession 6. For those locals, we call it, we won't say what we call it. But you'll notice that the red portion south goes right through Fran Webster's house. So if anybody knows that location, so that's that red portion. Yeah. And the red portion to the right on concession 5 goes near Mrs. Zhang's or west of Donald and Joan Gordon's, just to give everybody reference. But the black portion of the 6 line, north and south, Councillor Patterson, you want that out as well? Because we do year-round maintenance, or we do summer maintenance on it. I'm just asking. Or was it the 2 red parts you were talking about?
No, it's what you just said. It's only on the, yes, I don't think, we've kind of adopted this loose rule as if a car can ride on it, yes.
Yeah.
ATVs can go on it, but I think I was looking at it from the point of view of frustration to the ATV, because there's nothing to go to. You mean you go in, it's kind of a dead end.
Yeah, so I think a solution would be really quick and just the north-south gray area, the southern half of it, you cannot drive a car on, Diane. So from your cursor down to the red, you cannot. But from the black line of 1213 north to Riverside Drive, you can. I mean, that's the case out there.
I would accept that, because what I'm afraid of is people trying to get down to Riverside Drive.
100%. I think you're correct, Councillor Patterson. That makes absolute sense.
All right.
That's my comment, Your Worship.
So that would be my motion, one motion.
All right. As I understood this, Councillor Patterson, if I can jump in, the 1213, as it proceeds further west at that intersection, it does exist, but it is, back, Dan, bring her back right there. Right at that intersection, there is no path forward to the west at that point. Is that correct, Mr. Sage?
It goes down into here.
Yeah, it goes north or south, but it does not go west in any way.
No, I don't think so.
Correct.
It goes down the slope.
Right, and that certainly would be a section of road that the township is an owner of, but provides zero maintenance on. Is that correct, Mr. Sage?
Correct.
Okay, so then effectively, there should be a little red space right there between Riverside Drive and the 1213 at that intersection.
Correct.
Correct. So, Mr. Patterson, that's what I'm hoping that you're adding, is that tiny little bit of road right there at the tip of that mouse right there.
Well, and I think also, I heard the CAO Sage say the line that would be concession 6, right from there down to there as well.
No, well, so the reason, council, that you're going to pick the odd piece of this out is that is outside of the Niagara Escarpment Plan.
Yes.
And as you recall, we were directed to pay very close attention to those that were inside the NEP.
Yeah, I recognize that this is not the same rule as the NEP rule.
Okay, so Councillor Patterson, your motion is about the 6th concession north of the 1213. Okay, and I'm asking you to add the
yes,
non-maintained piece of 1213 to the Riverside Drive.
Yeah, my motion included that too. It's just that these maps are so small, when you expanded it, it becomes more obvious.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, is there any further questions? It's a move by Councillor Patterson and seconded by the Deputy Mayor, I believe. Is there anything further on this discussion? Dan, if you could stop sharing your screen for a moment. All right, members of council, you've heard the motion of an amendment. I'm prepared to call it, unless you have any questions. I didn't even have a chance to ask that. Members of council? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? And those opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you. All right. Anybody else with any other amendments to the presentation? Oh, sorry. I did have some written down. It was McKechnie next, and then Deneen. I put papers down on top of my notes and I forget to look at it. Sorry about that. Mr. McKechnie.
Thank you, Your Worship. And this amendment won't be nearly as eloquent as Deputy Mayor Burton's, but I'd like to add an amendment to include the 3031 side road allowance from concession 6 to County Road 124 in the prohibited road allowances. So 3031 side road allowance from concession 6 to County Road 124. And yeah, I'll speak to that after I get a seconder, I guess.
Excellent.
Is that the process? I get a seconder?
That's exactly the process, Councillor McKechnie. Seconded by Councillor Deneen. Very good. Mr. Perot, can you call up the map so we can look at that one too?
Certainly.
I would suggest that our cartographer is going to be busy putting extra red lines on once we're all done this. Okay, so council, we are at the 3031 side road and the 6th concession. And for reference purposes, people, this is sort of due south of the Collingwood Regional Airport. And over at 124 is where the Emmanuel Church is located, right there at that corner. And Bateau Creek Golf and Country Club is right near there. So there's a portion of property that we own called a road right there. And it goes all the way across to the 6th concession. So we all understand where that is. Any questions of that? Mr. Perot, you got any comments on that?
No, Your Worship, I think, it would fall under that category where you could not possibly drive a vehicle across, especially at the close to the 6th here, where perhaps at some point in time, when a snowmobile bridge is proposed to be built across the little creek here, perhaps at some point in time, an ATV could cross it, but at this point you cannot.
I agree. Is there any members of council with any questions on that one? Just speak up, since if I can't see you. None?
Do you want me to speak to the motion, Your Worship, or for that amendment? Or
sure, yeah. Please go right ahead. I don't see you on my screen right now, but I can hear you. Please go right ahead, Councillor McKechnie.
All right. Well, I'll just keep it brief. So, as Dan mentioned, that's a cold water trout stream that goes through there. 3/4 of that road allowance is NVCA regulated, and the NVCA do not want anyone to go through there, or as they've indicated in their letter to the township. It also abuts an unfenced aggregate pit. As Dan mentioned, currently there's no bridge crossing that stream. So in the winter, the snowmobiles have to use private property in there, and the owners of the private property, the 3 owners, they will not give. I talked to them, and they said they will not give permission to the ATVs to use their private property to access that area. So the only alternative would be the ATVs going through that trout stream right now. And so for that reason, I just don't think it's appropriate that we put ATVs in there. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. Again, I don't see everybody. Please leave the map up, but if you have anything, just speak up. Would anybody like to have any questions or comments?
Yes, Your Worship. Just to say, that's the portion of road that former Councillor Christie was wondering about before the bridge. Was that with the ATV club or the snowmobile clubs looking forward to doing something? Is that the chunk of road we're talking about?
That's correct.
Yes, Councillor Walker, that's exactly the bridge that Councillor Christie spoke about. For sure, there is a river there, as Councillor McKechnie pointed out, that there's a cold water stream there that the NVCA have been working with the snowmobile club, and I believe even the ATV club are participating in that to try to sort that one out. So, yeah, that's what that location is, Councillor Walker. Did I interrupt somebody? Go right ahead, whoever's up next.
Councillor Broderick.
Yes.
Yes, the former Councillor Christie and I talked about that area and that bridge at great length. I do know that the ATV club and the snowmobile club were collaborating on building a bridge across it. For that reason, I would support a temporary restriction on it, with the understanding that once the bridge has been built, that we would remove that temporary restriction.
All right. As a matter of procedure, if I can help you out here, Councillor Broderick, that once this bylaw, if it ever does get passed, the schedules would be amendable by motion of council at any time. So Schedule B would be the instrument that you would want to bring forward a motion, or other councillors in the future would bring forward a motion once that happens. Any other questions?
Your Worship,
yes, go ahead.
Your Worship, may I speak to that?
Yes.
So yeah, I understand what Councillor Broderick's saying. I think that once that bridge goes in, that I think it's up to the ATV club then to come back to council and ask for, access to that road allowance at that time. I think at this point, though, I don't want to put in that qualifying condition because we still have, it's still NVCA regulated. 3/4 of that road allowance is still NVCA regulated, and they do not want ATVs there. And also there's an unfenced aggregate pit there, and that would have to be addressed as well. ATVs and aggregates don't mix, I don't think so. Anyway, but I think that once the bridge goes in, then it's up to the ATV club to come back to council at that point. So
certainly the hurdles in building that bridge will open up a lot of discussion. So let's hope that one day it does get built for the sake of Councillor Christie. Anybody else with any comments or questions? I see Councillor Broderick. Did you have your hand up? Your microphone's not on. You're now on my screen for some reason. Go ahead, Councillor Broderick.
Yeah, the problem with waiting until that happens is that means the ATV club could not participate in building the bridge, which puts all of the burden onto the snowmobile club, and that's a considerable amount of burden. I'd like to see some way of us getting around that.
Councillor Broderick, as I said, as an item of procedure, that is amendable through a council motion anytime. Once we, all of our bylaws have amendments. In fact, later on in this meeting, we have an amendment to schedule of our appointments bylaw. So that's the procedure that we would have to amend it. So I don't think that prohibits the organization of the ATV club to participate in trying to build that bridge. Certainly the snowmobile club would appreciate the support. So I think you could, I think that that would be comfortable for them to be able to do that. Anyway, anybody else with any questions or comments about this amendment? I'm not seeing or hearing any. Dan, could you please stop sharing for a moment and we'll look to the floor. Anybody else on the floor? All right. Okay, send Councillor Lamers, you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I would suggest to John that the ATV club and the snowmobile club get together and work on that bridge, and then
we're doing that.
Yeah. Thank you, councillors. All right, I'm prepared to call a motion if you guys aren't. This is an amendment, just a review. Councillor McKechnie, seconded by Councillor Dineen, 3031 from the 6th to 124, correct? And it'll be correct, and it would be prohibited at this time. Okay, all those in favor? That was pretty simple. Those opposed? There we go. Thank you very much. I acknowledge that. That motion carries. Any further amendments that are for the motion or for the report as presented? Looking for anything further? Yes, Councillor Dineen.
I just wanted to make mention that I had my card up, and that was exactly the amendment that I wanted to make, that Councillor McKechnie brought forward. And
okay.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Doug.
Glad that it worked out for you then. Great. Councillor Walker, I got a note that you had a card up. Is that correct? Did you have another amendment, or where are we now with you, Councillor Walker?
No, I was just to speak on the previous amendment. Thank you.
All right, sorry, it's difficult to see everybody when we share a screen. I only get like 4 people, so I got sent a little note by text from our clerk telling me that you had, so thank you for that. Anything further? All right, I see nothing further. Council, we now have got to the point where we've received all of the amendments from the floor. Councillor Patterson has some significant amendments that are presented in his report. So I would ask that we go to Councillor Patterson's report and see if there's anything from his report that will become an amendment to this bylaw. Councillor Patterson first, is that a fair procedural for you? I know that you brought forward a pretty extensive report. Councillor Patterson, you comfortable with that?
I am.
All right, thank you. Members of council, then I would ask you to turn to item 11.2 of our agenda, which includes a report from Councillor Patterson. That report has multiple items in it. So, Councillor Patterson, with respect, I'm not going to read the entire thing unless you insist upon it.
No, I don't.
Thank you, because I appreciate that. It's a page and a half. But the gist of it is the recommendation be it resolved the Council of Township River hereby receive report COU 009-2020 amendments to the ATV draft bylaw for information. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and item 5. Right. So tell you what, Councillor Patterson, we'll take your amendments and we'll discuss them as we move forward here. The first one is simply to receive the report. We could dispense with that if you like, or do you want to receive the report?
Well, I think there's some things in the report that I would like council to consider, so.
Oh, for sure, they're all in here. All of these items are in here for us to consider. It's just that they're all basically amendments to the report that we've just received. So,
okay, so as long as my motions are on the floor, I'm procedurally okay with that.
Okay, so Councillor Patterson, direct staff to make the following amendments to the draft bylaw. A new section 2.c, and that's in regards to areas of Stainer, Creemore, and New Lowell, except as means of direct access to designated trail route provided or is operated in the community safety zones. Is that correct?
I will withdraw that motion as the previous motion submitted and passed by Councillor Burton, Deputy Mayor Burton, covers that.
Okay. All right, thank you. Then let's move on to number 3 then.
I would make one comment.
Sure.
I included it because I appreciated your comments at the beginning of the meeting that we're trying to have policy consistency across the township. And it's why I included the 3 settlement areas in the motion as they're defined in our official plan. And so I would leave the floor open to any of the others that wanted to speak to it. But as far as I'm concerned, I have no need to put it forward.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Staff, then I would move to page 4 of the agenda, which includes item number 3 from Councillor Patterson's report, where it says to direct staff to include Centerline Road from Mulmer, Nottawasaga, Sunnydale, Tuscarora town lines to the 1819 side road, Nottawasaga, and 3-4 side road, Sunnydale, to concession 7 Sunnydale at Schedule B, prohibited roadways. Is that correct?
No, if I may, there's another motion to be unmaintained road allowance.
Oh, item 2B. I'm sorry. I was only working as item 2, 3, 4.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, I just took out 2A, 2B, and simply to have a question to staff that I would, if we could have the map up again, that would be handy. And this is in the area of the.
Okay, Dan, can you put the map back up again? I'm unsure where Councillor Patterson is directing here.
No, actually, you know what? I'm just I've covered off the one we talked about 1213 already. So I'm good to go. I will withdraw 2B as well.
Thank you. Again, I'll direct to item number 3, direct staff to, regarding Centerline Road, 3-4 side road to concession 7. And you're asking that to be added to prohibited roadways.
Yes, I would defer to the staff's comments on this. But in the past, we've always seen the Centerline Road and and 3-4 up to Sunnydale 7 as really no go because of they're really, you know, we all recognize how fast the traffic moves, and so I would ask for council to consider, and perhaps with a little update from the staff, Dan or Steve, as to why they didn't include it in their recommendations, as we have in the past.
All right, Mr. Sage, Mr. Perot, I'll let you guys pick this up, and then I'll ask Mr. Patterson if he actually has a seconder on this one. Go ahead, guys.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Steve may have maybe more to add, but I think if you looked at the map once again, seeing as now a portion, a large portion of the southwest corner of the municipality would not have a north-south access. Centerline Road and Concession 3-4 would then be the only true through access from one end of the municipality to the other. Also recognizing that at least two that I know of the county trails are off of those roads as well. So
correct.
That those block access to those trails as well.
Correct. All right. Well, I appreciate that. And the other item that's in this too is the 3-4. There's certainly trails off of that as well. Councillor Patterson, let's put your motion on the floor and we'll see where it goes.
Okay, well, the reason excuse me, there's kind of two motions wrapped up in this, but we have to do them separately. So 3-4 certainly has good sight lines. Speed on the roadway is a concern, safety for the ATV drivers. 3-4 has significantly wider, for the most part, shoulders than most of our roads. Not so much on Centerline. So my next motion, just for comment, and I won't go into it, is why I thought that we should also tighten up the bylaw to include the ORV rules of the road as they're written in 31603. And that is to stay on the shoulder, stay to the right edge of the shoulder. Because I couldn't find anywhere in Bill 107 that took away that rule of the road once 107 is enacted.
Yeah.
So back to Centerline.
Councillor Patterson, let's talk about that in the next discussion.
Right, so I'm going
I'll
back
give you the opportunity to discuss Centerline Road and 3-4 Side Road in this motion that you've got as item number 3 of your report.
I'm
fair to make that, and
so I move that we include the Centerline and 3-4 Centerline. The Centerline obviously goes up to, I think, 18, 19. Yeah, and 3-4 would go from the town lines to Sunnydale 7.
All right, so you're putting it on the floor as it's included in our agenda, correct?
Yes.
I'm looking for a seconder on the motion. Deputy Mayor is seconding the motion. Those that wish to, Mr. Sage has got his hand up already, but I'll go to Mr. Sage, Mr. Perot, and then I'll look for comments and questions. Mr. Sage.
For your worship, I'd just like to clarify, I think you might want to change the motion slightly. Indicating Centerline Road from the Mulmer Town line north to 1819 Side Road, that's fine. Unfortunately, 3-4 Side Road goes nowhere near the Mulmer Town line. So I think you're going to have to make a determination. It appears that Councillor Patterson's resolution indicates a northern boundary of 3-4 to be concession 7, which makes absolute sense, whether council approves or not. But the southern restriction cannot be the Mulmer Town line. 3-4 Side Road's southern boundary is Hogback Road.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Further to that, Mr. Patterson, there is no 3-4 Side Road south of the Hogback. It doesn't even exist. So.
Yeah, if I said Mulmer, I meant it. I couldn't tell from the map when I wrote this up if the two came together. but I'll accept that, that change.
Deputy Mayor, you acknowledge that as well, just as the seconder? Yeah, thank you. All right, is there any questions to Mr. Patterson on this? Councillor Leishman has her card up, and then Mr. Broderick, okay?
Yeah, thank you. I can support Centerline because I know Centerline has some terrible sight lines in spots. And I remember that Deputy Mayor Burton actually brought an issue up with one of our farmers that was having a hard time getting out of his driveway. So I know that the road, and I travel it often, is not the best, but I cannot support 3-4 side road. I think the sight lines are quite fine. There are a few iffy spots, but I actually trust the ATV drivers who I know are going to be legal. And we're talking 50, 60-year-olds who, and I think they'll be quite safe. So I think I'd like to leave 3-4 side road in and take that out of the motion, please. Friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment, Mr. Patterson?
Yes.
I would agree to vote on them separately.
Yeah, we're going to vote on them separately. Thank you for that. Madam Clerk, please record that it would be 2 separate motions now. First one will be Centerline Road from Mulmer, Nottawasaga town line to the 1819 side road on Centerline. That's the first one we're discussing, okay? Patterson and Burton, are you still the seconder, Mr. Burton? Yep, okay. Anybody else on the Centerline discussion? Yes, Councillor Broderick, did you want to jump in on that? Go ahead. Your microphone's muted, sir. Here we go. Nope, it's muted again. Go.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can't support either one of those. The whole concept of this was to expand access. This does the very opposite. Can't support it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right, Councillor Patterson, I have a comment for you. If you recall, when we first started this discussion, my comment was always that I wanted to work with our neighbors, particularly the Township of Adjula-Tosaranio. While they only border us in a very small area, that is in fact the Centerline Road and the Hogback and the 3-4 are Adjula-Tosaranio. And so I want to be supportive of that. So I will not be supporting your motion based on that, limiting access to for residents of Clearview to access Adjula-Tos. They wouldn't be able to access Adjula-Tos from there at all. So that's my comment. Members of the council, I'm prepared to call the motion unless there's any other questions. All right, I'll call it. All those in favor?
Which motion?
It's only the motion on Centerline Road. That's what we're dealing with right now.
Thank you.
Centerline Road. Those in favor? Those opposed? And the motion is defeated. All right. Councillor Patterson, second would be 3-4 side road, Sunnydale, which we would actually be from the Hogback. So it would go from 3-4 side road at the Hogback northwards to concession 7 Sunnydale as a prohibited road. Is that what you are suggesting, Councillor Patterson?
Yes.
Okay, and that's moved by Councillor Patterson. I'm asking the Deputy Mayor, are you seconding that? Yes, he is. Any questions or comments about this discussion on the 3-4? Anybody's got any questions or comments to Councillor Patterson or staff? All right, seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion is defeated. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Patterson, item number 4 is quite an extensive write-up in regards to Regulation 316-03, which you sort of briefly commented on. How about I let you continue your comments on that discussion, although if I may comment, our staff have already included this in their original motion. So I'm surprised that it's in there. Anyway, carry on, Councillor Patterson.
Well, it would be news to me if they recorded the the detail that I was looking for here. And I only am referencing this because many of the other roads, shoulder, let me start this way. Because as much as we've talked about things, we haven't really talked about some of the stuff that's in the weeds, as CIO Sage likes to tell us. So here's one of those. From what I understand, the provision in 31603, the current one and the one after Bill 107 still requires the best efforts, if you like, of ATV to travel on the shoulder. And then they go into some detail. And I simply pulled that section of the regulation, subsection 24, number 1, the detail, we could maybe shorten it down a bit, that actually defines that requirement. Because I don't think the intent is that, especially on roads like 3-4 and Centerline, that we would want them on a regular basis driving down the traveled portion of the road. And certainly on 3-4, as I mentioned earlier, there's more than enough in most of the road space on the shoulder to almost get 4 wheels on without being, but I would like the emphasis a little bit more strongly put in the bylaw that actually defines the shoulder, not just the boulevard, and then puts in the stipulation that that you should be on the shoulder, of course, with the language of the regulation that says unless there's restrictions and that sort of things. That's straight out of the 31603. None of those are my words.
Seconder on this extensive motion?
I'm sorry?
Looking for a seconder on your motion. I see, oh, Councillor McKechnie has got his card up. Okay. If I may, I'd like to go to Mr. Perot and or Mr. Sage to comment about the content of 316-03 on how the report and the bylaw already include all stipulations in the MTO regulation. Mr. Perot, you're one of our 2 resident experts on this. Mr. Perot, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. And my only comment to this would, I think, would be that by putting that wording directly into the bylaw from the regulation, that if the regulation were to ever change or be amended somehow, that then our bylaw may not be correct at that point following any amendments. So by allowing, or by the wording of the bylaw, that that section of the Highway Traffic Act as amended would allow our bylaw to be effective until the council of that day would wish to change it at that time. That would be my only comment.
All right, Mr. Sage, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think Mr. Perot was dead on. It's usually we put clauses in the bylaw referencing a regulation as amended, so that over the next 20 years, regardless of how many times that regulation may or may not get amended, our bylaw is still relevant. So if you put words in the bylaw referencing the current regulation, but 2 months from now, 3 months from now, the regulation changed, the bylaw may not be in force and effect. So I would advise council to just put the reg in as amended, and then the OPP know exactly what they're dealing with. Thank you.
Okay. I have in front of me information that came to me from the OPP that I could share with members of council. Councillor Patterson, you might be interested to know that Schedule 52 of Regulation 13316-03 includes the Ontario OPP and policing requirements for the actual item numbers. So if a ticket was issued to a driver of an ATV they would have to stipulate 316-03 and then an item number. So item number 48 through item number 56 include these words: fail to drive on shoulder, fail to drive in the same direction as traffic, fail to drive on roadway at railway crossing, fail to drive in the same direction as traffic at a railway, fail to drive at right edge of shoulder, fail to drive at right edge of roadway, fail to yield to vehicle on shoulder or roadway, enter shoulder or roadway when not safe, or drive in the median strip. And the other item, which is of interest, is item 62, that says fail to position properly vehicle before left turn. Item 62 is fail to move back after left turn, which speaks to what you're speaking about. 31603 already has all of these items in it to make sure that the operators of these vehicles will stay on the shoulder of the road, immediately to the right side of the road. It's already in here, and the OPP officers have every ability to lay a charge to a driver. By the way, the specified fine at this time is $85 is what the fine is for failing to comply with that. Of course, all charges have to be seen in court in front of a judge, or just written up as a summons by the OPP. Any questions to that information? Yes. See Councillor Broderick and then Patterson. Go ahead, Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to say I agree with everything staff and the mayor has just said. Regulations are the province's bailiwick, not the municipalities. We should not be rewriting the bylaws. We would have to change them every time there was a regulation change. It's an exercise in fruitlessness.
Councillor Patterson?
This discussion's been helpful to me. I simply would say, though, that you did highlight some sections of 316, and if 316.03 was the change, for example, with regards to helmets or seat belts, not likely, then we'd have to change our bylaw anyways. However, it would be useful in our discussion to reiterate, because I know some of our discussions since July started to sound like they could just ride on the roadway. And I don't think there's anyone's intention was to allow that, and because that would be at variance to 316. I'm not rewriting 316, I'm simply quoting it for emphasis. But I'll accept that, the explanation from Dan and from Steve, from the mayor, Councillor Broderick, and I'll withdraw that request.
The seconder, Mr. McKechnie, the motion's been withdrawn. Fair enough? Okay.
Fair enough. That was a good discussion. I'm glad I seconded it for that discussion. But yeah, no, I think the right thing to do is withdraw it. So that's good. I'm happy with that.
All right. Thank you very much, Councillor McKechnie. Councillor Patterson, I see you have one final item that was prepared in your report. Direct staff to prepare a recommendation of contract services to the OPP to perform the necessary additional enforcement expected as a result of the implementation of this bylaw. Is that you're still standing with that?
Yes.
All right, I'll look for a seconder on the motion. Councillor McKechnie, thank you very much. Is there any questions to Councillor Patterson on this particular motion? Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Is this not something that we should be looking at for the budget process to come up with an amount, to find out what our costs would be with the OPP, and then to come up with an amount to put in for extra OPP enforcement?
Thank you, sir. Yes, I agree with you on that. And if Councillor Patterson, if you check the minutes of the budget workshop, Councillor Patterson, you'll see that it was something that I brought up in the budget discussion, that we asked for some funding to do some work, basically pay duty officers to perform some speed enforcement in our community. And certainly this is something that we can discuss at the budget item. Thank you, Councillor Walker, for reminding us. I saw your card, Councillor Patterson. Do you have something else?
I just accept that discussion as well, on the understanding that we defer this until our budget meeting.
I'll tell you what, any member of council can bring it up during budget discussion. So all of us are here right now, so let's all remember to discuss this. It's on the minutes that I have from items that I brought up during that budget discussion. So for sure, we will discuss OPP in our community. Anything further?
The last thing thank you, Council. The last thing I would ask is, in general, a question to staff. There was quite a bit of work done in the community. And one of the groups that did was the Creemartin Area Ratepayers Association, CARA. And I thought there was some reasonable suggestions that they made in terms of additions to the bylaw, draft bylaw. Just asking staff, were there any there that they saw had merit to add? I'm thinking tightening up the parks, some of the ones that were in the CARA decision. Maybe a comment from Dan or Steve. I have no motion. I just would not.
Thank you. Just to be clear, then you're withdrawing your item 5 recommendation. Is that correct?
I just assume under the understanding that we're going to talk about it at the budget, because it is a budget issue, then I'm fine with that.
All right, well, that's fair. The understanding will be that any member of council can bring up a discussion at the budget item. And so I look to you to do that when we have our budget discussions.
Will do.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor McKechnie, the item's been withdrawn. You understand that? Thank you. Okay. Mr. Perot, would you like to, oh, sorry, Dan, or Doug, did I cut you off?
Never. No, you would never do that.
Thank you, sir. As you can all tell, I'm trying to be respectful to get everybody to speak if they want to speak. Dan, do you have any comments? Some of the recommendations that came as part of the package from CARA. There were some items in there that were of interest to me as well. So I just wondered if you had any comment, Dan, on that.
Thank you, Your Worship. To be honest, I set some of those things that came directly to me aside because this report was still under discussion. If council wishes, then I can revisit some of those suggestions, or if council has suggestions for amendments to that bylaw. I could take those into consideration.
And I would support actually what Councillor Patterson saying or suggested just a minute ago, Tom, in regards to some of the trails, some of our trails at Clearview Township owned trails, which are frankly not as many as we'd hoped to have had, but we do have some. And our parks are all prohibited. There'd be no access to any of our parks. And this bylaw is also presented that it's specifically about the roads. And we've obviously had quite a good discussion about roads in the NEC area, as well as the no maintenance roads that have virtually no maintenance or zero maintenance, or have never had a vehicle on them. It was interesting just as for council to know that when we did have the tour with the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Patterson, Councillor McKechnie, and myself, one of the comments that Steve made was that that road right there may have never had a vehicle on it. He pointed up at a piece of road that we actually own. It may have never, ever had any type of vehicle on it. And yet it is considered a road. So anyway, this has been a good discussion. So I think if there's nothing further, we have a motion in front of us that has been moved and seconded, and it now has extensive amendments. Is there anything further on the amendments or discussion on the item that Mr. Perot's report 021-2020? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, I would like to have this as a recorded motion, as we have been doing so through many of these. So if you would take the opportunity to call this motion, this would be the motion and as amended. Would you be able to present that for us now?
Yes.
Anything further? Thank you. Okay, I'll be quiet. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so we're conducting a recorded vote on the main motion as amended. So we'll start with Councillor for Ward 1, if you want to say yay or nay. Councillor Deneen? Or you can just put up your card. Yeah. Okay. We'll go to Counselor for Ward 2, Counselor McKechnie.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Counselor for Ward 3, Counselor Broderick. Yes. Counselor for Ward 4, Robert Walker. Yes. Counselor for Ward 5, Counselor Patterson. Yes. Counselor for Ward 6, Connie Leishman. Counselor for Ward 7, John Lamers. And we'll go to the Deputy Mayor Burton. And lastly, we'll go to His Worship, Mayor Measures.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Thank you, members of council. Now, as I suggested when we brought this agenda forward, that at this time we just go directly to our bylaw. So if we go to bylaw 20-71, I will read it. I'll look for a mover and seconder on bylaw number 20-71. I'm going to be adding the word as amended because the report now has amendments. So that's not written here, but I will be adding that to it. Bylaw number 20-71 to regulate off-road vehicles. Recommendation be it resolved that bylaw number 20-71, being a bylaw to regulate off-road vehicles, be it presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed as amended on this 26th day of October 2020. I ask for a mover and seconder on the motion, please. Councillor Walker, Councillor Lamers. Thank you very much. I don't think we need to have it recorded because we can all see each other. All those in favor? Those opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. Council, we got through that pretty good time. We still have several items on our agenda of our regular council meeting. I'm just going to try to get back to where we were, which I believe we were going to discuss the library next, I think. Yes, here it is here. Let's go to page number 5, CS 045 2020, Township of Clearview, Stainer Public Library Branch, 201 Huron Street. Okay, recommendation be resolved. The Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive report CS 045 2020 for information. And item 2, pass the zoning bylaw amendments to the Township of Clearview zoning bylaw number 0654, being bylaw 20-66 for the lands known as 201 Huron Street in Stainer and legally described as Plan 68, Part Lot 2, Registered Plan 51R8529, Part Lot 4, now in the Township of Clearview. Mover and seconder, Councillor Broderick will be the mover. Councillor Lamers will be the seconder, and our staff have rejoined us to speak to us about this item. Ms. Burton, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can actually pass this over to Rosalind Workman because she was the planner that worked on the file for the former library.
All right, thank you, Councillor Workman. Councillor Workman. Wow, you don't want to hear that, do you, Rosalind?
Not yet.
All right, fair enough. Ms. Workman, how are you?
Good, thank you, Mayor Measures and Council. Not sure I have anything more to add. I'm happy to answer questions.
Fair enough. Members of Council, are there any questions to our staff that are present? Councillor Leishman, nope, I couldn't tell if you were jumping in or not. Oh, she does. Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just want to say I'm glad the library sold, and I'm glad it sold for more than what we thought. It actually attests to the fact that the library actually kept that building up quite nicely. They put a lot of money into it, and it's a very good building, and I hope the people that take it over are happy and successful. And thank you to staff for facilitating this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leishman. I appreciate those comments. It also does speak to the previous councils that have discussed this as well. I certainly recall a former deputy mayor being very much engaged in this business of saving that building, and so thank you very much for that mention. Members of council, anything further? All right, well, thank you, staff, for being here. Council, you've got the motion in front of you. It's moved and seconded. I'm looking to call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Council, moving on to page 6. It is a zoning bylaw amendment regarding County Road 91. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive CS 046-2020 for information. And item 2, approve and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the amending, sorry, again with these glasses. Execute the amending zoning bylaw 20-68 for lands municipally known as 9186 County Road 91, Clearview, and are legally described as Plan 111, Part Lot 13, Southwest Block, Registered Plan 51R 40853, Part 2. The lands are located west of Duntrew. Wow, you better explain this one here in a minute. I'll need a mover and seconder on the floor. Let's see, Mr. Burton and Councillor Deneen. Ms. Burton, is this you or is this Mr. Ainley?
Thank you,
Your
Worship. Yes, it would be Mr. Ainley.
Hello, Mr. Ainley. What would you like to tell us about this very complicated?
Not too much to add. There's sorry, apologies for that. Not too much to add. There was a bit of context and background that I did want to cover in my report, so hopefully it was clear enough. But again, if there's any questions or comments, I'm more than happy to address them here tonight.
All right, questions or comments from members of council? Yes, Councillor Leishman.
Thank you. Nick, is there any reason why nobody sort of checked up on this person when they were clearing all this property and he wasn't supposed to? I mean, was there any record of it or anything? Any notice?
Through your worship to Councillor Leishman, unfortunately not at the time. It appears that when because at the time of the severance of the zoning, it appears that when the building permit was likely issued, it was done very close to the zoning, when the zoning had passed the previous zoning for the site. Right. So it appears that when they had located it there, it wasn't caught for whatever reason in terms of the building permit process. But other than that, in terms of the clearing of the site, unless there was a neighbor that was notified us of the works or while I would be driving by, we were unable to determine it at the time.
Fair enough. Councillor Leishman, go ahead.
Thank you. So if we're to believe this, that they're going to replant and revegetate this property, are we going to maybe stop by and take a look once in a while just to make sure that it happens this time? Just that.
Through your worship, Councillor Leishman, we definitely can stop by. Obviously, accessing a private property, we would need permission from the applicant to do so, but you can always peer in from the road. The applicant has begun to replant, revegetate some of the rear portion of the site, and as part of the rezoning, they're really only seeking to rezone the area that was not the entire that was disturbed. They're seeking to remain some of that area in that. And speaking with the applicants, they're actually hoping they would prefer to go natural state to give them some buffering at the rear of their site. So in discussion with the applicants currently, I have every reason to believe that they would keep up their word or their end of the bargain in terms of reforesting and replanting the rear portion.
Well,
yes,
I'm glad. I just don't understand why he put a fence up, but I hope they take it down because it really is not very pretty. Anyway, thank you for doing the work on this.
Great, thank you. Anybody else with any questions on this report? Councillor Patterson.
Nick, by the way, it's very well written.
Oh, thank you.
Normally, planning reports aren't engaging. They were long, but it was a good flow.
All the planning reports are engaging, Councillor Patterson. Come on now.
Yes, they engage us, but they're not all engaging. No disrespect. This may be too harsh, but in terms, follow on what the Councillor Leishman just talked about. Was there any need to put anything registered on the on the plan.
Ms. Burton?
Thank you, Worship. No, we haven't looked at doing that. It's kind of an unusual circumstance because it really wasn't, it was one of the only areas that was even zoned EP. The whole area wasn't actually even zoned EP.
Yeah.
So, and Nick can correct me if I'm wrong, so I'm going a little bit on memory here, but it kind of came out of the county official plan that put this area into greenlands, and the severance policies weren't as forthcoming as we expected. So it kind of came as a surprise partway through the process, and that's how this all happened. And then also with when it comes to building permits on a larger site like this, just to give it a little bit more clarity, we go, the building department goes by the information that is provided by the applicant, and they are not surveyors. So with a larger property, if the building is out by 10 feet or 20 feet, they wouldn't necessarily notice that. Whereas with a smaller property, that would be very visible, and then they would have stopped, and then it would have been questioned. But on this site, that was difficult. It wasn't noticeable until it was later surveyed. And that's when it was found out kind of what happened. And also from this road, because the front of the property was protected with trees, you couldn't actually see what had taken place. So it was the previous owner, and sometimes these things, are difficult situations to try to rectify, and sometimes you kind of have to make a reasonable compromise with the new owner. So in this case, I think that's where we are, is towards making a reasonable compromise, because the environmental protection zone doesn't apply to any of the surrounding properties. It was done specifically for this property as part of a survey, or as part of a severance. So it's kind of it's a compromise, but nothing's registered on title.
Thank you. Anybody else with any other questions? Thank you. Nothing further? All right. Thank you, Nick. Look at that, Nick. You're getting props from councillors for writing good reports. Good job. Members of council, I'm prepared to call a motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you, staff. Okay, next item in your category still is the zoning bylaw for 856 6th Street. Be it resolved that council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive report CS 047-2020 for information. And item 2, approve and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the amending zoning bylaw 20-67 for lands municipally known as 854 6th Street and legally described as concession 11 North Part Lot 42 and R51R 545, part lot 5 to 26. Can I have a mover and seconder on that one? That'd be Broderick and Lamers. Any comments about your report, Mr. Ainley and Ms. Burton? Anything?
No further comments this time. Similar to the last one, there was a bit of background context. So hopefully, again, my report was clear. And again, I'm here to answer any questions that may come up from council.
Good. Any questions to our staff in regards to this report? 854 6th Street? Seeing none. Thank you, staff. Members of council, you've got a motion. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. Back to Public Works. We're going to purchase a grader. Recommendation, be it resolved that council, the Township of Clearview hereby one, direct staff to purchase a 2018 John Deere 772 GP motor grader from Branch Tractor Limited in the amount of $485,000 plus HST. Okay, I'll need a mover and seconder on this motion, and that'll be McKechnie and Burton. Mr. Perot, would you please outline your report for members of council and the public?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so essentially in the 2020 budget, we had allotted some funds to purchase a grader to replace grader 6, which is the one that unfortunately broke down in December, and staff made a decision to rent the grader that we currently have just because of the cost that it would be involved in repairing that grader. and the time that it was going to take to get that grader, it was going to be down out of repair for probably a good month or two. So it's a critical time for a grader, snow plowing and whatnot. So fortunately, Brant Tractor has agreed to give us credit for the amount that we've been renting it since January. So that will that portion, that almost $100,000 has already been paid for in 2020 as well.
Okay. Any questions to Mr. Perot in regards to this this purchase? All right, I'm seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Perot. I'll call a motion if council is prepared. All right, call a motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Just a quick comment. That's exactly why our staff are really good at finding people in the industry to help us when we have a problem. When that grader failed or just couldn't get fixed, we're able to deal with that. And good work, staff. All right, we're going over to the finance department now. Madam Treasurer, I hope you're on board. She's got some information here as well as a report from the CAO. Finance 013-2020. This is about phase 2 funding. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive FIN 013-2020, the Safe Restart Phase 2 funding report for information. And item number 2, authorize the treasurer to apply the Safe Restart Phase 2 funding. Can I get a mover and seconder on this important information? Leishman and Walker. Leishman and Walker. Madam Treasurer, nice to see you again. Would you have anything you'd like to add to the comments in your report?
The report speaks for itself. We do need council resolution to apply for this funding, and this will be over and above the phase 1 funding that we've already received. I personally believe that our loss of revenues is going to be our biggest hit, and I'm hoping that the phase 2 funding will help alleviate that.
Let's hope so too. Let's hope that the province and the federal government continue to recognize that municipalities are seeing significant losses during this crazy time. All right, any questions to our treasurer, members of council? Looking, not seeing any. All right, thank you much, Kelly, and also to our deputy treasurer as well, who assisted, I'm sure. Members of council, I'm prepared to call the motion if you're prepared. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Mr. CAO and the treasurer, I think, should hang out for this one. Mr. CAO is there. Okay, this is in regards to library funding reconciliation, which I'm sure, Steve, you've got a lot to say, but how about I read it? We'll get her on the floor. Recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive report Clearview Library Funding Reconciliation Report 2020 for information, and item 2. And further, that council approve the funding solutions as listed in Schedule A. And item 3, further, that council instruct the Director of Finance to apply for and bring back a borrowing bylaw to facilitate the funding solution as listed in Schedule A. Okay, can I have a mover and seconder on the floor for this one, please? Councillor Leishman, Councillor Walker, and Mr. CAO, I just want to recognize you before you even start by saying I was the councillor who, when we had this big discussion about this library, the councillor from Ward 1, myself, I made you promise us that this was going to stay in budget. And I'd like to faithfully speak to members of council and state that by reading this report, it has stayed in budget. And so thank you for that, Mr. Sage. Go ahead.
Your Worship, thank you for that. And it was interesting earlier on in the meeting when we were talking about Mr. Delzato's subdivision that was originally approved in 2006. It made me think of this report for a little while, because for those of you who are on the library board, the original needs study for Councillor Leishman and Councillor Walker and those members, the needs study for the Standard Branch was 2006. So don't be too hard on Mr. Delzato. Sometimes we don't move that fast either. But anyway, here we are in 2020, and council, I'm extremely happy to get this report to you for consideration. There's quite a few people I need to thank. I worked I know I worked on it for way too many hours, but so did many other people. And I'd like to start by thanking you as a council, the previous councils for supporting the project. The board, the library board, they were meticulous, they were diligent, they never stopped pushing, and to their credit, they convinced our last council to move forward with the project. Some other people, particular staff, Kelly and Edward. So Edward's no longer with us, but if you look at the original funding plan, Edward Henley was the author of that. He worked with me on it, but Edward did 90% of it. So to the Treasury Department, I want to thank you. Jennifer LaChapelle, maybe not here tonight, but I know Terry is. So Jennifer and Terry on the site, particularly when you're here, Terry, your whole arena was disrupted for about 3 years. It should have been a year and a half. I'll talk about that in a minute. But to you, thank you for all your efforts in getting the project done. And to Jennifer, Jennifer was extremely patient. She just wanted her library. But trust me, on this project, patience was, you had to have a lot of patience. Some other people, Luke Bulliam, who was our architect, and RJ Burnside. I can tell you, council, that their fees for service were above what they should have been, but nowhere close to what they could have been for a year and a half delay. So to them, I want to thank them for the concessions that they made during the project. And lastly, so none of this is in the report, but lastly, I want to thank Bonfield Construction staff. Although Bonfield Construction got into an accounts receivable issue, their staff at the Stainer site were excellent all the time. There were some very, very tense discussions, some decisions that had to be made that not too many people appreciated sometimes. But at the end of the day, they held up their end of the bargain. So to the report, yes, Your Worship, you put me on the spot to make sure I could bring it in on budget. And for those of you who recall, we weren't streaming back then, but I remember what I said. And that was that the cost to the taxpayer annually would be less than what Edward and I said it was going to be. And that is the case, significantly. However, we got a little bit lucky, let's be clear. The interest rates are lower than when Edward and I originally did the business plan. So that was a significant savings. The sale of the, as Councillor Leishman mentioned earlier, the sale of the Huron Street facility allowed us to have a few additional funds. You'll also notice within my report, there's $100,000 in there to finish the landscaping, and that item will be included in Terry Vachon's budget for 2021 through the Parks and Rec Department. And then lastly, the other thing that was totally unexpected was the situation with our development charge reserve funds. For those of you who may or not recall, we did an expansion to the New Lowell branch of the Clearview Library many, many years ago, and we borrowed the money to facilitate that project. And those funds to pay for that facility was paid from development charge, ZIZ. And the development charge reserve for a library up until a few years ago was in a negative balance. But I can assure you that today it's in an extremely positive balance. So therefore, the Director of Finance and myself made a decision to still be conservative and still use a small portion of development charges to make the payments on the loan, which is what the developers want. So keep in mind, if you don't use DCs, developers want to know why you're charging them. So you have to use them. So down the road, you will have some options with respect to payment. I'm pretty sure that, Kelly's going to come back with a good report on the funding. But if development growth continues, you'll be able to amend my solutions going forward and consider using more development charge money to make those payments. But today's report is a starting off point for 2021. So with that, I'll take any questions, and I'm sure Kelly's here to talk about how the loan would work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sage. You're right, there was an awful lot of people involved in this. I'd just like to comment before I go to Kelly. In regards to Bonfield, I did attend, I think, 2 different meetings with Bonfield as the mayor. And I know that my predecessor, Mr. Vandercruz, also did similar when they were just getting started. And I agree with you. The staff that were working here on our site were very, very attentive and very aware of what we were doing by building a brand new building on a building that was already a few years old and discovering that there were things missing in the original building that weren't there. So it was, I know, a big challenge. So thank you for that. Okay, Kelly, you were going to comment on something. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, but I think Steve's pretty much summed it up. I will come back with the OILC loan application and a borrowing bylaw for you, and we'll move forward from there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kelly. Thank you, Steve. Members of council, is there any questions you have of our staff in regards to this pretty significant report? Yes, Mr. McKechnie, and then Councillor Leishman. Go ahead.
Thanks very much. Steve, $100,000 for site landscaping. I don't know. That just seems like a lot of money to me. Is that just a ballpark that we pulled out of the air, or have we had a landscape plan done for that? Or
good question, Mr. Singh.
What sort of landscaping are we looking at?
So through your worship to Councillor McKechnie, we have an absolute plan. We have all the drawings. We have the civil drawings. But at the time of tendering, Councillor McKechnie, previous councils considered that would be a way to have a cost saving measure at that time. We facilitated the works at the town hall exactly the same way in 2003. We reserved the landscaping until the following year. The $100,000, I hope that we can get it done for around 70 or 80, but it was originally in the original tender document, I think it was 96 was the estimate, and that's a few years ago.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Trees cost a lot of money. Wow.
They do. They certainly do. I believe Councillor Leishman is next. Is there anybody else? Councillor Leishman, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, trees cost a lot of money. But actually, I want to thank everybody that was on the building committee as well. We cut back an awful lot. When we sat down, Councillor Walker and I, back in 2015 at Coffee Culture and started talking about this, how the heck are we going to get this library through? I honestly didn't think it was going to work, but we did. We made it work. And thank you to Steve and Edward for doing it, because it was magic. But it wasn't. It was a lot of hard work. We took a lot of things out of the library that we wish we hadn't. And now we probably didn't have to, but we did. And we were being very conscious of the cost and the size and all the little odds and ends that cost us money. And we were always budgeting and rebudgeting and recalculating, and it worked. And we've got a beautiful building. I'm very proud of it. I don't know. I just want to say thanks to everybody that was involved. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Leishman. Anybody else with any questions or comments? Nothing further? All right. So, yeah, before you go away, Kelly, you're going to bring back a report. Will it be at our very next meeting, or is that something that you need to have a little more time than just our next meeting?
I likely come back. There'll be 2 stages to it. So the first stage will likely come back at the next meeting, and then the following stage will depend on when the province gets back to me with their rate sheet.
Right. And so to answer the question, that as a result of the planning that's got into this, approximately $40,000 would be surplus each year in the current budget system. Council will have the opportunity to make a decision about that at the budget discussion. Is that correct, Kelly?
Absolutely.
Okay, so for members of council's purposes and to support what Councilor Mr. Sage has been saying, for council to understand the $175,000 that has been contributed to the reserve fund for the library for at least 7 or 8 years. That funding is what they're going to be using to draw upon to pay the debt once Kelly prepares this document. And there could be in the neighborhood of $40,000 surplus, which council will have a decision to discuss. Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else? Thank you. Good news story. Council, you've got the motion. We've got a mover and seconder. We've heard from the staff. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? Well done. That motion carries. All right, Mr. Sage, don't go away. We got to talk about Economic Development Advisory Committee. I also call it the Economic Development Action Committee. A recommendation Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive Clearview Economic Development Advisory Committee Report 2020 for information. Item 2, further that Council approve the terms of reference for the Economic Development Advisory Committee as attached as item number 1. And further that Council direct staff to advertise and recruit for Economic Development Advisory Committee members and report back to Council. Can I have a mover and seconder on this motion, Mr. Deputy Mayor and Mr. Broderick? Thank you very much. Mr. Sage, would you like to speak briefly about this?
Yes, Your Worship, I'll try and be briefer than I was on the library. There's a few things that in this report that are extremely flexible. So over the last few months, and I got to give credit to my assistant, Jennifer Kane, and his worship as well, and myself, we went around many municipalities in Ontario and stole some of their ideas and plagiarized their documents and tried to fit it to what Clearview might need. But the problem with that is you don't know the makeup of your members. And there may be some experts in the economic development field, either within council or in our community, that might be a terrific resource to this committee. So getting all hung up on what all the terms of reference are, although we spent a lot of time on it, please, council, don't get too hung up on it. Allow the committee to come in and perhaps provide you with alternate recommendations. But I would stay to the course of the makeup of the committee. Intentionally, I put comments in there that the mayor should be the chairman. Those are my thoughts. If you read the Municipal Act, that's his #1 priority, is economic well-being of the community. So that makes sense to me. We had our committee makeup originally that was significantly larger, and I want to thank the mayor for suggesting we make it smaller because it probably works better. So council, I think it's a good starting off point. I also would ask, I'm pretty confident that out of the 9 of you, you already know of some excellent candidates in our community. And although when we form a new committee, we have policies we must follow as far as advertising, and we will. But if this is passed tonight, I would start tomorrow yourselves recruiting good members to move forward. And I'd take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sage, and I do appreciate you commenting, Jennifer Kane Percy. She is a wonderful resource to this entire operation, and she's been very, very helpful in helping us put this one together. And so Mr. Sage and myself, we probably owe her lunch at a minimum. Thank you. Members of council, you got any questions in regards to the CAO's report about this? Members of council? Mr. Patterson, I'm looking for others. Thank you. Mr. Patterson, go ahead.
I agree with CAO Sage. It's a good start, and I'm not going to get into the weeds, Steve, on the terms of reference, but they're always a good sacrificial lamb to start off with, so I appreciate it. You mentioned that one of the things that I was looking for right off the top, who you're going to talk to and how we're going to handle it. I assume when you said the development of understanding the position, work culture, strategy, etc., the consultation with key stakeholders, one of them, the group being members of council. So are you going to do like an interview style like we did, for example, for some of our other projects? Or do you want us to send in comments, or is it going to be structured so that, we can contribute to it and then also can be led by a process?
Yeah, so I think it'll be something that will come back to the entirety of council. I hope, so let me back up. It has been our experience in the past that potential members have not been knocking down the door to get in, that we've actually had a struggle to get people to sit on this committee. But I hope, to your point, Councillor Patterson, that council, if we want 10 members, I hope we get 10 applicants. But I have not put a lot of thought into how council might choose one member over another. I have not. So I think I'll leave that up to council. And then, I think that's, to be candid, I think it's a council decision, but I did not build criteria, did not do that.
Just simple question. Are you going to interview us separately or in the group? I thought it was well when we did the website rebuild and a couple other things.
So I would prefer I think it would be separately at the beginning, because sometimes you're a little more candid when we do it that way.
I appreciate it that way as well. That was what I was asking.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to just jump in here. I think, Councillor Patterson, I think it would be appropriate for all members of council to try to recruit some people who would make their application form. It is a volunteer committee for sure, so we do have a process through the clerk's office to accept people to volunteer. But I would suggest that if there's any members or members of the public that have any questions about this committee, to please reach out to myself through this and or the CAO to discuss what a future an economic development action committee is going to be working on. And to Steve's point, the terms of reference can evolve based on the skill sets of those that come forward. Certainly the sectors in our economy locally need to be represented. We have some large employers. We certainly have some small employers. We have some very significant agricultural industry as well as tourism industry. So we have some areas all in our community that need to have some attention. And I'm hoping that we can draw upon some resources from those areas to bring forward a committee that can serve the businesses in our community. So thank you for that. Anybody else with any questions or comments? I saw Mr. Broderick, you had a card. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So happy to see this move forward. I like what I see. It's something that I think is very much needed, and I think will help the whole area considerably. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. I think we're wrap this up. Nothing further. All right, Council, we've got a motion on the floor. Thank you, Mr. Sage, and I will call the motion. All those in favor? Yep. And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sage. We'll get started, like you said, tomorrow morning. Recruiting. All right, Council, we've got an HR report, which does have to do with the CAO, although I'm hoping that Tammy is with us. I don't see her name right now. Oh, and she pops up just as I said her name. She's there. Hello, Tammy. Tammy Gill, our HR manager. How about I read this recommendation, and then we'll take questions. Recommended be it resolved that Council of the Township Clerk hereby direct the manager of human resources to recommend an executive search firm to commence with the recruitment process for a CAO as soon as possible. Item number 2, further that the recruitment selection committee comprised of the following members be established: Mayor Doug Measures, Deputy Mayor Barry Burton, Councillor Robert Walker, and the successful executive search firm. The manager of HR resources will be a staff resource. And item 3, that the mandate of the recruitment selection committee to oversee the recruitment and interview processes with the recommendation to full council of the top candidates, with the final selection to be made by the whole of council. All right. So this is an HR process, although it is a council, so we have to have an actual motion to move us through this. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder on this motion, and then we'll have questions. Mr. Lamers and Mr. Broderick, thank you very much. Ms. Gill, hello, Tammy. Tammy and I have had a lot of discussions about this, and we had another discussion with the Deputy Mayor as well. And Tammy, I appreciate your report very much. And although it's we're hiring a CAO, which is the senior manager of this entire operation here at Clearview, just to be clear and to be transparent, Tammy, while she is our HR manager, is not involved in the actual selection of that individual, whoever that individual will be, because that individual would be Tammy's boss. So we want to make sure that there's a transparency in the fact that the responsibility does fall to council will decide. Okay? Tammy, go ahead if you want to outline some of the items in your report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. As you know, our CAO has submitted his retirement notice, so my report today is based on that and filling that upcoming vacancy. So based on my professional experience in the past practices of Clearview Township when recruiting for the CAO position or recruiting for that level of position in any organization. It's always best to have the help of an outside agency, and that's the executive search firm. So I have created an RFP process, and we have a number of interested parties in submitting their ideas and their proposal on what that executive search would look like. And we actually even received one today. I would suggest that I can gather that information and bring a report next council meeting to make a recommendation to you on which search firm to approve for the process, but that would be your decision. And then the selection committee, there would be some work happening before it was presented to council. I think that my suggestion would be that we would have council interview the top 2 or 3 candidates that the selection committee would refer to you, and interview them as a whole group, and then the final selection of the new CAO being made by council as a whole. So it's my hope that the getting started on the RFP process pretty quickly will help make this process a little bit speedy and getting us a new CAO fairly quickly.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gill. Now, just as full disclosure as well, the deputy mayor and I had a discussion with Tammy in regards to this process. Ms. Gill requires council to give her direction on hiring the executive recruiter. We had a discussion that Tammy would advertise it, and myself and the deputy mayor and Tammy would simply select the successful candidate without Tammy having to bring back another report and wait another meeting of council to move this forward. And so I'm wondering if I can ask Tammy if that's still something that we can move forward with, or how would we proceed in this manner?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that would be a decision that council could, make a recommendation on if they would like, the selection committee to, to move forward with the best executive search firm that submits. I think then that's a decision that, council can make for us, and we could do that, absolutely.
All right, so as I'm the chair of the meeting, I won't make that motion. I'm putting it out there if someone wants to discuss it. Mr. Sage.
Seems kind of awkward that I'm the one that wants to discuss it, but I would caution council that depending on the value of the RFP, make sure you follow your procurement process. That's all I would advise. There are only certain staff that can approve values of certain numbers without a council resolution. So that's all I would caution you on. Thank you.
I'm looking at you, Deputy Mayor. You were part of that discussion. You haven't said a word.
Well, I mean, you've said it, Your Worship. It's, I think what's going to happen is, I know the RFQ has gone out, and or RFP, whatever term you want to use. And I think, yes, between you, me, and Tammy, we should be able to pick out who's going to be the best recruiter. Because all we're picking is the best recruiter, and then we're going to let them go ahead and do their job. So, but I like, let's expedite the process as much as possible while still staying within the rules.
I think the point there is that it's as Mr. Sage's point. Yeah, we want to stay within the financial requirements of the procurement bylaw, and that would be the case. Tammy, obviously, and through the clerk, in order to move this ideal forward, I need a motion. So is there a motion to do that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I didn't write one as such, but maybe our clerk could help us with that.
Well, that was what I was hoping. I see Councillor Lamers and McKechnie have put up their yes card. Madam Clerk, can you write a motion for it, please?
Yeah, so what I would do is I would change number 1, and I would say direct the manager of human resources to recommend an executive search firm to the selection committee for their approval. Committee for their approval.
Okay. I'm
Does
just,
that make sense?
that satisfies what you're thinking, Madam Clerk?
Yeah, because it would say direct the manager of human resources to recommend an executive firm to the selection committee for their approval to commence the recruitment process for the CAO as soon as possible. Now we might have to get it approved by another party if it is above a certain amount, and I don't know what the amount would be. So is council agreeable to the CAO approving it if it's over the threshold that Tammy can approve?
Okay, I recognize Steve and then Barry. Go ahead, Steve.
Your worship, I'm pretty sure the value of what the recruiter is going to be bringing in can be approved by the director of finance.
Okay, so approved by the director of finance. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Barry, you got something there?
I just wondering, should we we often approve staff to do things up to a certain amount. Should we predetermine a dollar figure on it? Are we thinking 100,000 or 120,000 and put a number on it? And as long as it falls within that.
It better not be that high. Kelly or Steve,
I was just picking numbers out of the sky. But what I'm saying is, should we put it so that the committee can approve that the committee, a recruitment officer, a recruitment person, provided us within a certain limits, and then council's already approved it and gives us the go ahead to do it.
Kelly?
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Burton, that's very specific in our procurement bylaw. So that will speak to the numbers. You don't need to include it in this. I apologize for my Halloween decoration.
Very good animated Halloween decoration. Good job. Okay, so members of council, the clerk has prepared a bit of an amendment. I'll go to the mover and seconder if you're comfortable with that amendment on Tammy's as presented motion. Councillor McKechnie's good. Councillor Lamers, you good? Yeah. Okay. All right. So this will be as an as amended motion. Madam Clerk is recorded. Is there any other questions on the process? All right. Nothing further. We will absolutely report back to all members of council. Very likely to be in camera as we move forward on this process, and we'll certainly keep you all up to date on potential dates for interviews, etc. That we'll schedule some special meetings for that type of material. All right, council, you've got a motion on the floor. Thank you, Madam or Ms. Gill and Madam Clerk. Council, you got a motion on the floor as amended. You've got a mover and seconder. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And thank you, that's carried. All right, thank you. Okay, we're moving on. We're looking good here, guys. Still got an hour to go, Councillor McKechnie, before your famous motion comes up. All right, here we go. Okay, this is a good one. This is a really important item here, guys. AMO Rural Caucus vacancy. Recommendation, be it resolved that council of the Township of Clearview hereby support Pamela Fettis expression of interest application for the Rural Caucus staff vacancy with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Please, a mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Burton, seconded by Councillor Deneen. Madam Clerk, please join us for a moment once again. All the best. I think this is fantastic. You're putting your name forward on this. You've obviously been a part of going to AMO conferences and paying attention, as well as your work with AMTTO. I think that you will be an excellent addition to them. And so congratulations. Thank you. Any comments?
Thank you. I really appreciate it. There's still a little bit of a process, so I haven't been selected yet, but I really appreciate council's endorsement. And I think it's really, really important to make sure that Clearview is represented at the provincial level and that we have input on legislation that's coming forward. I've always felt that's really, really important. So thank you so much. And thank you for your support.
I think the other aspect of that support too is the fact that a rural municipality like ours would be represented on the rural caucus. You know, rural caucus has, frankly, some municipalities that have very small populations, where ours is growing. You know, we're 15,000 and growing. So we would actually be one of the larger rural caucuses, or rural members of the rural caucus. So, okay, Council, you've got a motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Good luck, Pam. Excellent. Council meeting schedule for 2021. Can you imagine when we passed this a year ago? Would you imagine how messed up our council was going to be for 2020 with the crazy schedule changes? All right. Recommendation for 2021. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the 2021 council meeting schedule as presented. Can I have a mover and seconder? That'd be Broderick and Burton. Broderick, and then seconded by Deputy Mayor Burton. Any questions on the proposal for our meetings? Yes, Councillor Leishman, go ahead.
Thank you. I was a little confused about June. On the 26th is not a Monday. The 28th is a Monday.
Oh. Okay.
Am I wrong?
Is that a typo or is that a Pam? Do you want to look that up?
Yeah, it might just be a typo. We can address that. It's that council meetings are always on the Monday.
Yeah, that's so far. Yeah.
Unless you want to change them. It is the 28th, so we can adjust that on the report.
Okay, 28th. Thank you, Councillor Leishman, for that. That's great. Yeah. Well, to be honest, when we get to the discussions about procedural bylaw, that's something we can discuss as we continue to meet in Zoom format. Is 5:30 the correct time for us to start our meetings? That's a question we can discuss when we get to procedural review. All right, so you've got a motion on the floor. You've got a mover and seconder. Is there any further discussion on those dates? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we're into the bylaw section of our meeting. So item number 2065 is, that was our on-desk item in regards to part of our in-camera discussion. So I'll read the motion. Recommendation be it resolved that bylaw number 20-65, being a bylaw to amend the appointment bylaw number 19-06, to appoint a member to the Nottawa Hall Board, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on this 26th day of October 2020. Can I have a mover and seconder on the floor? Broderick and Deneen. Broderick and Deneen. And the person that we are speaking about is Pat McCrindle, or Pat McCrinnan, who we know. There's a Pat McCrindle in our community in Ottawa, isn't there? Sorry, I didn't mean to mix that up. Pat has been volunteering on the Nottawa Hall Board for some time, and she's put her name forward to be on the Hall Board. Okay, Council, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, and next item is 201 Huron Street. This is the zoning bylaw amendment. This is a bylaw for the zoning bylaw. Recommendation be it resolved that bylaw 20-66, being a zoning bylaw amendment on lands municipally known as 201 Huron Street, Stayner, be presented and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on this 26th day of October 2020. Mover and seconder on this bylaw. Let's see, Walker and Leishman on this one. Any questions on that bylaw? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. Bylaw, also zoning bylaw for 854 6th Street. Be it resolved that bylaw number 20-67, being a zoning bylaw amendment on lands municipally known as 854 6th Street, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on this 26th day of October 2020. Can I have a mover and seconder on that motion? Burton and Lamers. And any questions? Seeing none, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. Sorry, that bylaw carries. I have to always correct myself because you say motion a lot, but when you say bylaw, you're supposed to say the bylaw carries. All right, zoning bylaw amendment for County Road 91. Recommendation, be it resolved that bylaw number 20-67, being a zoning bylaw amendment on lands municipally known as 9186 County Road 91, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on this 26th day of October 2020. All right, a mover and seconder on this motion. That's a request to speak. And I got a mover and seconder. So we're going to go with Broderick and Walker. Mr. McKechnie, go ahead.
You mentioned it was bylaw 20-67. I have 20-68. Is that a typo on your piece of paper there?
It is. 20-68 is what it is. Correct. Bylaw number 20-68, zoning bylaw to amend the lands municipally known as 9186 County Road 91. Roger that. Thank you, Doug. Seeing nothing further, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Bylaw carries. Okay. Now, bylaw number 20-69 is the bylaw to appoint the fire prevention officer. I've declared an interest in this, so I pass the chair to the Deputy Mayor Burton for this portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I will read the recommendation. It's 20-69 to appoint a fire prevention officer. Recommendation, be it resolved that bylaw 20-69, being a bylaw to appoint a fire prevention officer, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 26th day of October 2020. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Broderick and Councillor Walker. Any questions, any comments? All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you all, and I will return the chair back to His Worship.
Thank you very much. You see, Barry just did it just exactly what I've been doing. You're supposed to say bylaw carries instead of motion carries. Sorry about that. Madam Clerk, go ahead.
Sorry, Your Worship. I was just going to say, I think when you sit back a little, it gets a little hard to hear you.
I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to sit back so I can see because my glasses are not focused properly. So I'm doing my best to sit forward. Okay, we've dealt with bylaw number 20-71. So now we have the item 13, notice of motion regarding 13-1, Councillor McKechnie about opening washrooms. Councillor McKechnie, do you have anything to add? We don't normally discuss it at this point, but do you have anything to add?
No, as I mentioned in my ward report, I'll probably pull that notice of motion. I still have to talk to the Creemore BIA rep, but I believe that this issue has been resolved. So that motion will probably be pulled.
Thank you. And then item 13-2 is Councillor Lamers in regards to installation of an always stop. Is there anything you want to add to that, Councillor Lamers? We'll be discussing it at the next meeting. Is that right?
Yes, thank you, Worship. Yeah, this was one of the big issues that were brought up at election time that people wanted looked at. And it's a bad intersection. It needs to be attended to and resolved.
Thank you. All right. Well, we'll look forward to the discussion on November the 9th on both of these items or not. Councillor Patterson, yes?
Well, you and I talked about this earlier, and John Lamers and myself talked about it earlier too. I was really happy to see this about a year ago. I believe Dan and Mike Ron might remember. We did talk about this intersection, and staff was thinking this is before COVID hit. This is a dangerous thing, and I did wonder if council was willing to entertain suspending our rules and the waiving notice and voting on this now. If not, then the suggestion I would make to Councillor Lamers is that he add to this lighting at the intersection. A street light the intersection as well.
All right. So again, our procedures are that we would put this on the agenda so that council has an opportunity to discuss it at the next meeting. You're asking for a change Is there any interest in changing that at this time from the members?
Or is there any interest in actually approving it? Waiving motion?
We'll have that discussion on the 9th right now, according to our procedures. So certainly, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I would suggest we wait till the next meeting. So to give staff time, because they're probably going to want to come back to us with costs involved and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I probably suggest we wait till then.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I saw Mr. Ron popping in and out there, so I'm sure he has things to say about this. I would suggest, thank you, Councillor Patterson. It's a good recommendation. I appreciate what you're saying, Tom. And I know we did speak on the phone about it, but following our procedures would be that it's on here for information. It gives notice to the public that they have opportunity to participate as well through our public participation period. And I think that we can deal with this motion as we do any others.
Yeah,
I'm sure there'll be amendments, including lighting, that you're suggesting. We're already hearing about an amendment. We haven't even got it on the floor yet.
Thank you, Councillor Lamers. This is a good one, because that's a bad one.
A good one and a bad one, Councillor Lamers. All right, Council, thank you for item 13. We've discussed item 13. And item 14 is our bylaw to confirm the proceedings of our council meeting. It's a bylaw, so recommendation be it resolved that bylaw 20-70, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the October 26, 2020 council meeting, be presented and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on this 26th day of October 2020. Can I have a mover and seconder on the confirmatory? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Deneen, on the confirmatory bylaw. Call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries unanimously. That bylaw carries unanimously. All right, Council, item number 15, motion to adjourn. I want to thank you all for your participation. Again, I have hoped and strived to be fair, to allow everybody an opportunity to speak at all times during these meetings. And I thank you for your participation tonight in this great meeting. And we're wrapping this up before 9 o'clock. Councillor McKechnie, how about that? Thumbs up.
We're getting better. We're getting better.
Well, we're getting to know each other pretty well, I would say. And the last comment I'll do before I go to that, Councillor Leishman, thank you for coming back and joining us. I appreciate seeing you. All right, Council, motion to adjourn, recommendation be it resolved that Council adjourned at, what does that say right there? It says 8:47. Is that right? Is that what it is on your computers? That's
Close enough.
Close enough. Mover and seconder, please. Broderick and McKechnie. Those in favor? And that motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, Council. I look forward to County Council tomorrow.